Monsieur le Député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le Député Legette. Monsieur le Député Ayer. Monsieur le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Alves. Madame le Député Gardner. Monsieur le Député Gorse.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Farnham. Madame le Député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Joseph. Monsieur le Député Balash. Monsieur le Député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le Député Poré. Monsieur le Député Wall. Madame le Député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le Député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Renouf. Madame le Député Curtis. Madame le Député Feltham. Madame le Député Binet. Madame le Député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le Député Miller. Madame le Député Howe.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Binet. Monsieur le Député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le Député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Curtis. Madame le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le Député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération étant accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussis au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plut de mettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné à t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi la reine, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Défaut.
Monsieur le Député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Tadier.
Défaut.
Monsieur le Député Ayer. Madame le Député Alves.
Défaut.
Monsieur le Député Farnham.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Joseph.
Deputy Joseph is malade.
J'aurais que Monsieur le Député Joseph est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Madame le Député Poré.
Défaut. Sorry. It's been a long time.
Madame le Député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le Député Miller.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Curtis.
Les États sont constitués. Members will have noted perhaps that former Deputy Margaret Legette passed away last week. Mrs. Legette was born and raised in Oxford, and it was there that she met her husband Brian while she was studying at university. The couple set up home in Jersey in the 1950s and raised 2 sons. Her early career was in nursing, and she spent many years owning and running several preschool nurseries, providing school holiday care for younger children. In 1990, she stood successfully for election, the first time as deputy for St Saviour's District 2, and she was subsequently re-elected in 1993 and in 1996, before losing her seat in November of 1999. During her time in the Assembly, she was active in supporting low-income and disadvantaged families, rallying against the lack of support for tenants facing eviction. She served on the Tourism, Sport, Leisure and Recreation, Agricultural and Fisheries, Social Security and Housing Committees. Outside of the States, Mrs. Legette was a supporter and keen participant in the Jersey branch of the Royal Air Forces Association. She died peacefully on Saturday, the 20th of April, aged 87, following a long battle with Parkinson's disease. We send our sincerest condolences to her family at this time, and I ask members to rise for a minute's silence. May she rest in peace.
Can I raise the deaf on Deputy Tadier?
Yes, the defo is raised on Deputy Tadier.
So I have a medical appointment at 11 o'clock. I wondered if the Assembly might allow me to take my oral question 12 at the start of question time.
Members agree with that? Yes, so we'll take it at the start of question time.
Grateful, sir.
Very well. There are a number of subordinate acts under B. Also, a number of matters have been presented or laid as described on the consolidated order paper under section C. Under section D, the following have been lodged: pay gap reporting P13, Second Amendment, lodged by Deputy Andrews; in vitro fertilisation IVF funding P20 Amendment, lodged by the Minister for Health and Social Services; reappointment of Jersey Consumer Council Chair P23, lodged by the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development; draft unlawful public entertainments Jersey Regulations P24, lodged by the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development; draft income support law and regulations Jersey Amendment Regulations P25, lodged by the Minister for Social Security; States of Jersey Development Company Limited, new Articles of Association P26, lodged by the Minister for Treasury and Resources; and the draft Social Security Jersey Amendment Regulations P27, lodged by the Minister for Social Security. There is nothing under E, F, G, or H. We come to questions. A number of answers to written questions have been tabled. And we now move to oral questions. And the first question is going to be question 12 that the Assembly has agreed to take. And the Minister for Environment is to be asked a question. I beg your pardon, that's written questions.
Sorry, sir, it's 13.
I apologise, sir, I was looking at the wrong order paper.
Yes, I think I might be slightly out on the order paper. Question 13, in that case, I'll assume the permission of the Assembly. Thank you very much, Deputy Wall. Operates... no. Sorry, which is the... So question 13, thank you. Deputy Coles will ask the Minister for the Environment. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the adoption of paragraph A of P87/2023, will the Minister advise what progress, if any, is being made in increasing the minimum residential space standards for one-bedroom apartments?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the approval of Part A of P87/2023 requires me, as Minister for the Environment, to review the residential space standards and consider making the minimum standard of a one-bedroom, two-person apartment the minimum standard for all one-bedroom apartments. I'm well aware of the need to do this work, and I've been provided with an initial briefing by officers. Site visits are currently being arranged so that I can see and understand the realities of different residential standards in new developments. I believe these visits to be essential before I can make an informed decision about how best to move forward, and once I've done this, I commit to providing an update to the Assembly.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. As part of the read, does the Minister accept that the will of the Assembly was to see them become standard to suit two residents rather than just a single occupancy?
I believe that to be the case, sir, but as I said before, I think it's important to take a practical view of these things, and I really might welcome the opportunity to look at the differences in these two types of units. I did abstain on the original proposition as a Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I'm not going to express a view one way or the other here now, but I will say to the Deputy that I am absolutely aware of the need for proper space in any units, and usable space at that, as tight corners don't always, they may add up to square footage, but they don't actually ever always come to usable space.
Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister of the view that increasing minimum size standards will have an impact on prices of one-bedroom units?
Absolutely, sir. Any increase in minimum standards will allow for less units to be built on a specific site, regardless of how small the increase might be. So we do have to take that into account, but I do think it's absolutely right that the population of Jersey should be entitled to the right amount of space in a unit. And we need to realise that minimum standards will be the size that developers will build to. It's very nice to say, here's the minimum standards, but of course they'll do a little bit more than minimum. In reality, that won't happen. So we need to be very conscious of the fact that where we set the minimum standards will be what is built out. And I think it's, as I said previously, I think it's important to make sure that those minimum sizes take out tight corners that are completely unusable. And that's why I say it's important to look at the variations.
Supplemental question, Deputy Andrews?
Yes, please, sir. Does the Minister respect the consultation that was completed by the previous Minister for Environment, and does he indeed respect the findings of that consultation as well?
Absolutely, sir. I'm sure if I issued the same consultation, I would probably get the same results. So why would I not take notice of it? And I will take everything into account if I decide further down the line that changes need to be made.
So I have Deputy Jeune, Deputy Renouf, Deputy Alex Curtis and Deputy Southern ask questions. No other questions on this particular one. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister indicate what kind of timeline this work will come to fruition, and is it on his priorities pile?
It wasn't on my priority list, sir, but I don't see this as a big piece of work. I just need officers to arrange visits to two suitable units, ideally next door to each other, so that the comparison is easily made. I can then go away, look at the paperwork that I need to, compare the previous consultation and come to a conclusion.
Supplemental question?
Yes, so just to confirm with the Minister that he believes that before the end of this year we will be seeing the standards coming to us.
Absolutely, sir. I'm very happy to commit to before the end of this year.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Is it the intention of the Minister to bring any proposition or to the Assembly in relation to this matter, or will he simply be producing guidance?
I'm happy to tell the Deputy that I will come back to the Assembly with it, whether that's a statement to say this is what I intend to do, or whether it's a proposition which asks for the Assembly's agreement. I'm not sure at this stage.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, sir. Might it be, would the Minister consider, given the need to achieve some kind of consensus in the Assembly on this, would he consider arranging visits to suitable apartments for state members in order to perhaps help members understand some of the issues involved?
Certainly, sir. I think if the work that I'm going to do in the next few months ends up with a proposition to the Assembly, it would be only right for the states members could themselves go and view the two differences to reach their own personal conclusion.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. In response to Deputy Andrews' supplementary, the Minister said we would wish to see developments exceed the minimum, but it's only likely to expect we will see them only meet it. Does the Minister not agree it is well within the Department's gift to assess sites on a case-by-case basis and refuse applications that fail to deliver the correct housing stock for that given site?
So the demand for units, whether that's 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed, changes week by week, month by month. And certain developers are certainly very good at changing developments mid-flow and coming up with the sort of units which are in demand at the time and may not be the units they had the original permission for. But I think I go back to my original answer to the Deputy about minimum sizes, and it's, you know, whatever minimum sizes we set is what we will get. And I think we need to bear that in mind. But certainly when it comes to the different sizes of units, whether that's 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed, the situation changes all the time. But I think it's right that we target the ones in most demand.
Supplemental? Supplemental now? Deputy Sutton.
Yes, the Minister says, indicates that he's likely to be fairly fluid on these standards, and I remind him that these are standards set by the states and should be enforced and not at the whim of developers.
Sorry, that wasn't a question, Deputy. Is there a question? No, there isn't a question, is there? I mean,
No.
Members only have a right to speak if they're asking questions or supplementary questions during this course of the matter. So members will please adhere to that. Final supplementary, Deputy Coles. Coming to question 1, the Deputy Jeune will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what steps, if any, are being taken to determine how the living wage rate will be set and indicate what the timetable for this will be?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the Assembly will know, reaching the living wage is indeed a priority for me. And I was pleased when the Council of Ministers agreed in its CSP commitment to bring the minimum wage to 2/3 of the median wage by this term of office. And I hope that the Assembly will support us in that when it comes to the CSP debate. Statistics Jersey provide annual information on wage levels which will be used to set the 2/3 rate. And my current plan is to introduce an intermediate rate in 2025 with the full 2/3 rate achieved in January 2026. I have been working closely with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development to work on what a suitable intermediate rate will be, and I will be shortly bringing regulations to the Assembly, asking the Assembly to enable me to set the rate without going to consultation with the Employment Forum. I have met with the Chair of the Employment Forum, and I am comforted that this will not be detrimental to setting an appropriate rate. The 2025 rate that I will agree with the Minister for Economic Development will be introduced in the coming weeks. And also during 2025, I will be working with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development to develop a set of minimum income standards for Jersey households. This will provide valuable local information which can be used to inform future living wage rates.
Supplemental question, Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Will the Minister include the value of subsidised food and accommodation or benefits in kind into the calculation?
I have met with key stakeholders, including employee stakeholders and employer stakeholders, and the subject of offsets for accommodation and food has come up. I have committed to stakeholders that I will look at offsets, but that would be on the basis of quality. So any increase in offsets would also, I would hope, lead to an increase in quality of accommodation standards where required. Of course, when we do the work on the minimum income standards, all of those things will be considered.
Will the Minister outline for members the means by which she intends to set minimum income standards? And will she accept that the setting of minimum income standards, because of the variability, for example, of rents, is a very, very difficult task? And is her target date actually doable?
I do accept that this is a difficult task. It will require detailed information, but I also believe that it is the only way that we can come to an agreed level of what is a decent minimum income standard for the island. And it will also be then available for us to inform potential changes to income support rates and also pensions. We can't know that those rates are appropriate unless we know how much it costs to live on the island, and a minimum income standard would enable us to do that.
Supplementary question?
The first question not been answered, I'm afraid. So what was the mechanism by which we're going to set minimum income standards?
The Minister for Sustainable Economic Development and myself, along with the Cost of Living Ministerial Group, will take ministerial responsibility for that, and we will be working with officers, but that methodology has yet to be determined.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. In interviews on this subject, it was suggested that support would be available to businesses who are unable to meet the new living wage. Could the Minister explain how this will be achieved and how it will be funded?
We are currently working through my department and the Department for Economy on support packages that could be available for both employers and employees as we go through this transitionary process. We will be communicating those as we go through that process. We have been in consultation with employers, and one of the things that employment groups have said is very important to them is a clear direction and understanding at an earlier time of what minimum wage rates will be. So one of the key things that they have asked for us to do is to determine the rate at a much earlier part of the year than currently is done, so that they have the ability to plan for any change in rate.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. So 2% of the working population is being paid a minimum wage at present. What percentage of the working population would be earning less than 2/3 of the median wage?
I don't have the percentage in front of me right now, and I will let the Deputy know, because we have been working on those calculations. I was indeed surprised that the calculations hadn't been done when I took office as Social Security Minister, and it appears that the previous government had been making decisions without such knowledge. So that is some data that I have actually requested since taking office.
In addition to circulating the member who asked the question, could she circulate it to the rest of the states, please?
Yes, I'm sure that's something that can be asked outside question time. That, again, although that was a question, it wasn't yours. So, I think...
I'm not having a good day, am I, so far?
We'll both get there, I'm sure, Deputy. I have Deputy Renouf and then final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. The Minister talks about subsidies or help for businesses. Does she accept that there's a danger here of undermining the whole point of a living wage? If businesses are subsidised to achieve that or given money and help in some way, then what is the incentive for businesses who currently pay the living wage, who will essentially be told, look, we've made the effort to pay the living wage, and now our competitors are being given help to achieve the living wage? It surely undermines the intent of the whole drive to a living wage, which is to encourage businesses to pay the living wage and build their businesses around that model.
Minister.
We are in a transitionary process, and the change between the current minimum wage and the living wage is a significant one. And I have taken advice from our economics unit to look at the risks. And part of the process of offering support to businesses is around mitigating those risks. I have to say, this is a priority for this government, but it was not a priority for the government before. And therefore, I have found myself in a situation where a lot of the groundwork to get us into this transitionary process hasn't been done. So that is what I am doing now, and business support is required in order for us to mitigate those risks.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf.
So I'm not sure that answered the question. Could I phrase it a different way? What message would she give to those companies who have paid the living wage to meet the standards that the island expects and are now going to see their competitors potentially helped to do the same thing with government money?
It is always important that any subsidies or other processes to help businesses or anybody that is receiving funding or any other support from government is undertaken in a fair process. So when we look at the processes for delivering that support, we will ensure that it is fair to all businesses that may well be impacted by the raise in the minimum wage.
Final supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you. So therefore, will the Minister confirm whether she is discarding the findings of the Living Wage and Minimum Wage Investigatory Report R181 published in December 2023, and if that is the case, if she is planning on releasing a new report to support the development of her proposals, and if so, when?
The report that was issued last year that the Deputy referred to suggested that it was not feasible or desirable to move to a living wage. That is not a comment that I agree with, and on the basis that I now understand that I've come into ministerial office, that ministers didn't have basic information such as how many people were affected. I think that that evidence was somewhat lacking, and I will be moving forward with the commitment that has been made by the Council of Ministers and also the States Assembly in its decision to move to 2/3 of the median wage.
Sorry, sir, the Minister was unable to answer my question about if she's going to be publishing a report to be able to back up her...
Yes, the question was in two parts. The first was, are you disregarding the first one, and the second is, are you going to publish something different if you are?
Yes, I am disregarding the first one. I will not be redoing the work that had been done because my focus now is on reaching the States Assembly's commitment of 2/3 of the median wage.
Very well.
Sir, could I lift the defo on Deputy Alves?
Yes, the defo is listed on Deputy Alves. That was the right question. We come to question 2. The Deputy Moore will ask of the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he plans to progress the community schools pilot that was planned for 2024?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for a question. So the community schools scope is very wide indeed. Indeed, the pilot mentioned in the question was not defined to a clear specification. When I look at the ministerial delivery plan on page 4, P1.2 and so on, I want to read this to give a context. It says, we will identify pilot schools in different contexts, primary, secondary, rural, urban, to understand how the community schools model can be developed to deliver ambitions of the Council of Ministers. We will work with partners across government and the third sector to develop partnerships across health, care and community service for the benefit of children, young people and their families. These partnerships will be modelled across different schools and begin to be delivered. So the pilot appears to be more about identifying what's a part of a future project. So I want to move away from this type of generic plan and move to actions. What we are doing regarding nurseries and some of the areas already in action is more about doing exactly this. There is an element of community provision across all of our schools, and I would say that all of our schools are community schools. Summer schools, after-school clubs, wraparound nursery provision, services embedded in the community like language therapy and mental health services. And they are led by schools because our schools know their population and they understand their need. Indeed, so I was at Samurai School the other day to watch their school elections, which I must say so were absolutely fantastic, and I want to give credit to all the children involved. And it was interesting that they are providing, sir, community services such as language therapy nearby so that parents don't have to go out to the Kennebec. So these things are happening. They should be led by schools, and that should be what I am reacting to, sir, to support it. So in short, yes, I do support the scope of community schools in the project, but so we need to get on with taking some actions rather than just planning. Thank you, sir.
Can I remind members that a response to questions should be no longer than 1 minute 30 seconds? And I am timing them. Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. So could the Deputy commit to some actions that would enable the extension of the school day in identified schools where there will be a benefit, which will, and the provision of extended activities for the pupils of those schools?
Thank you, sir. One of the ways in which we will extend is in our nursery division, which is the first part of the CSP, sir. And we've already taken action on that by, for example, sir, settling NEF payments for the next 4 years, which means that our negotiations aren't spent on those, but are spent on actually developing that provision across our schools, using the facilities we have there, extending them across all of our providers to extend the school day for parents who need nursery provision. In terms of extending the school day for provision of other services in schools, so that is already happening in so many schools. We see it all of the time. What we do have to do, though, sir, is build the confidence of our teaching staff after a really difficult time, and we've also done that, sir, by settling a 4-year pay deal so we don't have those negotiations in the future. They now know the priority that they have, in my eyes, and the eyes of this government, and therefore we can move forward to develop those projects in a wider sense. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And once again, I'm really pleased to hear the continued focus on nurseries. And I would just like to understand if any further schools have come on board from the original plans of extending the nursery hours since the previous questions.
Thank you, sir. So the initial plans were just generic plans. In terms of actual pilots, we are looking at some areas to pilot, sir. It's difficult for me to talk about those here because they are in. I would like to make sure they're certain before I announce them, because as I've said before with nursery provision, sir, we don't want to make promises we can't keep. But what we have managed to do is start a dialogue, which is a positive dialogue with nursery providers, one of the most positive we've had for a long time, by removing other negotiations, which were, to be quite frank, sir, not what we wanted to spend our time on. And we now have a positive response. For example, from the Jersey Early Years Association, we're very happy to put out that response, and we can now work with them to increase those nursery provisions, both in our secondary schools, where those places are available, to adapt them as necessary, and to try and free up, so most importantly, places for 2-year-olds across our island where there is a desperate need. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Dubé.
Thank you, sir. The dialogue, which was happening for several months to get head teachers on board with the community nursery extension, is that dialogue going to result in any extension of nursery hours from September this year?
Thank you, sir. The original dialogue, yes, was very positive. But from that, sir, came, and I've mentioned this before, all we had before was a plan to plan in September. I am hoping that we can have some actual pilots in place in September, and we are working on those as we speak. It would be great to see some of those in place so that we can model what goes into the future and try and extend that as early as we possibly can. So I fully understand and support the need for nursery provision, and I would like to see the extension of the NEF for 2-year-olds. But as I've said before, and I will continue to say, we will do that when we have the provision in place. We will not make the mistake of the UK when they made a promise they cannot keep. It disappointed parents, and it's created havoc throughout the sector in the UK. We will not be doing that, sir. We have a positive dialogue with the sector, and we will continue that.
Deputy Stevenson, Deputy Gardner, Deputy Renouf, and final supplementary. No further questions. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Minister's answer on the community schools has been a large part focused on nurseries, will he say, does he have plans to reinstate plans for a nursery at Leylon School, which I believe is currently the only state school without a nursery provision?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. There isn't a plan to build a nursery at Leylon School because of the school nurses we have at the moment. We have 188 spare places. It would not be sensible to create that at the moment. If we develop those nursery places in the future across our other schools and are using them and we find that need, then of course, sir, that's what we would try to do. I don't think that's the best direction of our funds at the moment, I'm afraid, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. Perhaps that school may get some other priority around building a community school if it doesn't have a nursery to provide that at. One of the barriers to access the school nurseries, and those which may explain some of those spare places there, is around the times of the day. I know that from speaking to parents. Does the Minister have any plans to address that?
Yes, sir. I feel like I'm repeating myself. First of all, sir, the community school is wider than the nursery. So because a school does not have a nursery does not mean it will not be a community school. A generic term defined by the last government without a lot of substance to it, more about vibe. I don't want that type of politics. I want us to actually get on and do something. Our schools are community schools. And so when we build new schools, we will build them as community schools as well. In terms of the wraparound time, yes, that is an essential part of our nursery provision. But to do that, sir, what we need is the cooperation of all sectors. I believe, sir, we have that cooperation. We have an extremely positive relationship with all sectors, third sector, private sector, and our state schools, and we can move that forward. And in the background, sir, there's an enormous amount of work being done to try and push that as quickly as possible.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, and I'm grateful for the Minister that he's taking forward the community school and recognizes his last answer that enormous work was done previously. Can the Minister agree that he will be not able to progress with delivery without planning? The planning is essential. And second, has the Minister asked officers to share all practical work that has been done from July 23 to deliver wraparound care at 3 schools from September 24, including the numbers that were in place?
So there was a lot to that. I lost the first part.
Does the Minister agree that needs planning? And second, has the Minister seen the numbers and practical delivery that has been developed from July 23 to be able to deliver wraparound care in 3 schools as a pilot from September 24?
Thank you, sir. I still haven't got the first bit. I apologise. The planning, sir, of course it's essential. But it comes to a point where you have to stop planning and you have to start acting. That's the point, sir. And our schools are community schools. Our schools have been doing this for years. Our schools for years have been providing sports facilities, outreach, support for children, educational psychologists, language therapy, counselling services, support for families. And they continue to do that. Just because a term, community school, was suggested by the last government, or indeed any government, doesn't mean it's something new that's been happening. What we need to do is support that as best we can. Indeed, so I look at the Constable of St John, and I remember, it's come back to my memory, that we have a meeting soon, very soon, it might well be next week, about sports facilities in schools and how we can extend those. So yes, work is being done, but not just planning, but actual work is being done. In terms of the 3 schools, yes, I'm aware there are plans, but my priority with the CSP was to get that number 1 in the CSP. Then we can take action on those plans if they existed. So I wasn't clear as to what those plans were doing, if I'm absolutely honest, but I'm not going to dismiss anything. Yes, I know we have really positive dialogue with the head teachers in the state schools, and we will develop that. There is no obstacle in the way to us doing this, apart from taking the action now. We've been through the planning, we know what we need to do. I want to see us get on and do it, sir. And so it's the number 1 in the CSP to do that.
So unfortunately, I think the minister didn't answer questions. He gave the prepared answer about vision. My question was very simple. Has the minister been presented by the officers numbers and very clear practical delivery that was developed from July 23 to get 3 pilots in September 24? It was a very simple question without going into this.
Thank you, sir. I think the answer to that is that it's another one of those generic plans that happened without enough detail in it. I wanted to see some actual detail on what was going to happen. So, we've had an enormous amount of talk about what's going to happen in nursery schools and community schools, but we've not seen a great deal of happening. So I'm hoping that we have projects in place for September 2024. I'm hoping we can extend that and we can model them correctly. So one of the biggest obstacles to this happening was the constant negotiations around the NEF. The first thing I've done in the first week of negotiations with JAYA is to sort the NEF for the next 4 years. So we're not using officers' time and JAYA's time, but we're talking about actually developing those nurseries. So actually what we're getting, sir, is a rather I don't know, I just think that we can move forward. I wouldn't throw anything away from the past. If it's positive, we will use it because we're all coming from the same place. We want to see what's best for our young people, and we will put that in place as soon as possible. If the Deputy wants to take credit as previous Minister, that's absolutely fine. We want to put things in place. But, sir, we haven't got a lot in place at the moment, and I've only been in a job a couple of months, and we're actually putting something in place.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. There does seem to be slight confusion here in these answers. On the one hand, the Minister is saying that we already have community schools, but I think the argument we would make is simply saying a school is a community school does not make it so. The idea of community schools would be perhaps to open them for sports facilities and so on. He says he wants to get on with things. What things is he actually going to get on with to extend the range of community provision through schools?
So perhaps I should speak more clearly. I realise I have a slight accent, but I should be careful in what I say again. Community schools, as the Deputy, absolutely agree with him, don't exist just because we've said it. Whereas if you look at ministerial plans, that seems to be what we're doing. Community schools are there because they are schools at the centre of our community. They already provide significant numbers of services, and they have done for years. What are we doing about expanding that? Let me give you an example, sir. I am meeting the Constable of St John so that we can look at practical ways to extend access to sports facilities across our school facilities. Estate is the word I'm searching for. In terms of other areas which is working, as I mentioned, Samurai School, I want to continue to support their provision of language therapy close to the school, and that's a really good model of what the sort of things we can do. What can we provide very close to school so that parents don't have to make their way out to Edith Kenneth Centre, for example, and it becomes an integral part of the school. The other really crucial thing, sir, is we need to push ahead with the building of new facilities, and when we do that, they will be available as community schools for our communities, particularly in the centre of St Helier. And so that's the other really key point to what we're going to do. And so I will invite members of this assembly to come and see the schools with me to see what they're doing. Before we stand up in the assembly, sir, and say...
Can you bring your answer to a close, please,
Yeah,
Minister?
thank you, sir. So there's an open invitation.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. I feel like that was a bit of progress because there were some specifics in there. Can he say when he will be doing these pilots so that when we can actually judge whether or not there's been success or not? I mentioned Samurai School and meetings with St John's.
So, in terms of the pilots for nursery, I think I've covered that. In terms of the pilots for sports facilities, we have to have the meeting first to see what's available and see what we can start with, so that will be as soon as possible. But I'd say again, sir, to the Deputy, I think we seem to forget what our schools are actually doing. Across our school estate, schools are providing after-school clubs, summer clubs, support for parents, support for families, opportunities for Best Start to be involved, opportunities in nursery, wraparound care. So there are so many things already going on. The key is to support the things that are doing, embed them, and then extend them where it is necessary, where it is best targeted. And that's what we intend to do, sir. And that's exactly what we intend to do. This isn't something new because it was thought of the last government or government before and the government before that. And it's not something new because I will mention it and the next government will mention it. This is something that is integral to what our schools do. What we need to do, sir, is support our schools, support our school staff, and build appropriately modern school facilities so that all of our children have the best start in life and the best access to education.
Final supplementary, Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. We've heard a lot from the Minister. I'm grateful to him for his answers, I think. But if I could provide an interpretation and ask him to accept whether he thinks this is the right one, it appears, sir, that the Minister is taking a slightly new approach in terms of rather than taking evidence and building an evidence base for taking action and providing a standardised provision for every child in this island to benefit, he prefers a piecemeal approach that will result in a postcode lottery for children.
As a simple answer, I couldn't disagree more with the Deputy's interpretation of what I've just said. It is completely and utterly wrong. What is piecemeal is not having, is creating generic plans with good vibe, but then having no substance to what's happened. I want to move away from that. I want to appreciate the work that's being done in schools, appreciate teachers, and the last government failed dramatically to do that because they had an industrial dispute for years, which they didn't settle, and just made worse with the letters that they sent. We've settled that, and we've prioritised what our schools do. That's what we'll be doing in the future. That's not piecemeal. That's called understanding lived experience from myself, understanding schools, understanding need for education, and understanding what needs to be done. That's certainly not piecemeal, sir. That's planning ahead, that's looking ahead, and that's having a common strategic policy that can actually be acted on. Thank you, sir.
Sir, could I raise the defo on the Constable of St Helier, please?
Indeed, you can. The defo is raised on the Constable of St Helier. Could I ask members and urge members to exercise discipline, both in the questions and in the answers? A number of times, and it's not only Deputy Ward who, in my experiences, has done this, the answers have gone beyond the 1 minute 30 seconds, which is customary to allow, and that means that members are not able to ask as many questions as they would like. And similarly, the questions should not be, in my judgment, they are there to ask for action or elicit information, not to seek support for a political statement. And if there's a political statement made with a question tagged on the end, that's inevitably a long question and inevitably will give rise to a long answer. And it is a matter, in my respectful judgment, that members should try and exercise some self-control over when they are dealing with question time. Otherwise, at the moment, the way time is going, we will probably lose the last 3 questions if all continue in the same vein. We come now to question number 3. The Deputy Southern will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services.
I'll do my best on brevity, sir.
Indeed.
Further to his response to written question 30, 2024, will the Minister advise what value for money assessments have been undertaken compared to alternative treatments in relation to the medicine Kaftrio used to treat patients who have cystic fibrosis?
Minister.
Sir, I had a formal response to this question prepared by the appropriate person at HCS, and it's rather long and rather complicated, so I've done my best to summarise it. In relation to the use of Kaftrio, the value for money assessment hasn't taken place yet because NICE guidelines have not yet approved this particular, in this particular case to which the Deputy refers. It's my understanding that the value for money assessment will take place when the case is reviewed during the course of the impending independent patient funding request.
Well, Yes, you certainly summarised it, Minister. Supplemental question, Deputy Southern.
Just wondering where to go after that response, sir. Does the Minister accept that there have been a number of trials of this particular treatment covering countries such as France, Scotland, Israel and even Guernsey, where it's proved to be very successful as improving lung function? Will the Minister ensure that this assessment does come to the fore in terms of how valid this is?
Yes, I'm very comfortable with that. I think the Deputy knows that I'm sort of privately supportive of this, and I shall do what I can. Obviously, there are limitations as to what I can do, but I do keep in touch with the Deputy on this particular matter, sir.
Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentions NICE guidelines, but as we see from a proposition coming forward, we don't always follow NICE guidelines. Is there any other opportunities and deviations from NICE guidelines that he's used previously and approved medications?
I'm sorry, that I think goes far too far outside. You're asking questions about medication generally, and the Minister's asked specifically about this particular medication. I think that takes it outside the what's permissible. Very well, we come to question 4. The Deputy will ask the Minister for Housing. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain why the Improving Residential Tenancies in Jersey Residential Tenancy Law Reform Proposal Findings Report was released in full in April, despite the Minister asserting in the Assembly on the 7th of February that it would be reframed and the reasons behind the delay in publication since this reframing did not occur?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The reframing did occur.
Supplemental question, Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. In the recently published findings document, it says the draft law will be published for further consultation. In the scrutiny hearing, the Minister suggested that this would now not be the case. Why does the Minister believe that relying on anecdotes, opinion and ad hoc meetings that evades both scrutiny and the scrutiny panel is better than gathering hard evidence and data in a transparent way to ensure that we get a residential tenancy law that works for all?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. For the second time in a matter of seconds, the Deputy has stated a falsehood about statements that I have made. That is not an accurate reflection of what I said in that scrutiny hearing.
Well, then we come now to the next question. The Deputy Renner will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Will the Minister advise what communication, if any, he has had with EV regarding the suspension of its electric bike rental service, and what assistance, if any, the government can provide to resolve the insurance cover challenge EV is facing?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Together with the Minister for the Environment, we met with EV in February. And then there was an exchange of emails with the Chief Executive of EV in mid-March around a proposal to the government around a shared mobility bike fleet, which presented a number of alternatives for the EV dockless electric bike business. However, on the basis of the information provided by EV, there was not a strong business case for government involvement and the matter was not pursued. In terms of insurance specifically, officers in the insurance team in Treasury and Exchequer provided assistance to EV regarding insurance of their motor fleet towards the end of 2023. As far as I'm aware, to date, EV have not requested any further assistance regarding bike insurance per se. Similar to the motor fleet situation, I understand Treasury officers would be happy to provide assistance where they can to help EV resolve the bike insurance issue. This does not mean it would be possible to place the EV bikes under the Government of Jersey insurance programme. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renner.
Yes, sir. I find it slightly disappointing that there's been no follow-up meetings since February. The Sustainable Transport Policy Next Steps document includes the following ministerial commitment to, quote, continue to encourage shared mobility as an alternative to private car ownership. It even mentions on page 46 working explicitly with EV to this end. Should the Minister not be engaging actively with EV to try and avoid the loss of this important service?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for his question. So we're happy to continue discussions with EV. In fact, we are discussing different options with EV. There are, I should say, sir, a number of local businesses who provide cycles, be they traditional or electric cycles for hire. They offer collection and delivery, and we're happy to work with any of those providers. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. What data does the Minister have to understand the demographics of the people who are making use of these vehicles?
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for a question. I understand that 56% of the users are local. I do have the ages somewhere, sir. I believe the average age is between 20 and 40, sir. Thank you.
Very well. I have, sorry, supplemental question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Does the Minister share my concerns that those on low income would not be able to have the same accessibility to these types of bikes if the scheme is not continued?
So there is, as I said earlier, other providers. It will depend on the usage of the bike. The bus service is a cheap alternative to cycles, but what we aren't able to do, sir, is support a business case that where the numbers don't stack up for us to purchase part or all of the service. Thank you, sir.
I have Deputy Jeune, Deputy Gardner, Deputy Aye and Deputy Tadier before the final supplementary. No further questions after those. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware that it will be far harder to start a new shared e-bike scheme than to keep an existing service going? Should he not therefore be exploring every possible mechanism to solve EV's insurance issue?
So I will repeat, sir, we haven't actually been asked to resolve EV's insurance issue for bikes. We were asked whether we would invest in the business. So if EV want help with their insurance, then it's the Treasury Department that would be the people to help them, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jeune. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister recognise there is a big difference between the hire company and the scheme that provided by EV as an e-bike, which is available now in almost the places around the world for locals who is not able to buy an electric bike to use it on daily basis? So, and if Minister does recognise the difference between hire and the scheme, would he explore every possibility mechanism to solve EV's difficulties and to allow service to continue?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, sir. So I do recognise the difference, sir, because when I visit other locations, I will often hire a bike and visit sites of interest. So I'm very familiar with that, and I'm very familiar with the different levels of quality in those provisions. So what we cannot do is spend money at a time when other demands we have on government finances. It's not something I believe the government should be involved in, is propping up this business. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
I agree that it needs to be consideration always to the public money, and we need to be prudent with the public funds. Would the Minister engage with the Treasury Minister and with Everybike to explore an option to save this business before it's disappeared?
Thank you, sir. We're happy to explore anything with the providers. So we have suggested that, like other jurisdictions, that they go and seek sponsorship for the services, sir. Whether that's from perhaps the local electric company, Visit Jersey, or anyone else that may be interested in that. You'll see around the country and around Europe that a lot of these schemes are sponsored by local businesses, and we have suggested that to the current provider. Thank you.
Deputy Aye.
My question's been answered, sir. Thank you.
Right. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure I fully agree with the better way position of nationalising EV, but if I could ask the Minister, does he think that, or rather, where is the line that needs to be drawn when it comes to supporting one particular business which has been struggling over others in the market which may also be operating successfully?
I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, the business case would have to demonstrate it's sustainable, sir, and we have not seen evidence of that to date. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tadier. Final supplementary then, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. I think I'm very disappointed at the language the Minister is using here. He's referenced the possibility of other providers. He's talked about a bus service. He's talked about not propping up this business. But he has had no other contact since February with the business. I checked last night with Evie. And it seems to me that this is not a government that is working flat, a minister that is working flat
Deputy,
out.
this is at the moment a political statement. It isn't a question.
It is about to be a question, sir.
Well, if it could be a question straight away, please.
The whole point of my earlier point was that the strategic policy is that it puts a long-term strategy as a priority. Is he happy to see the business die on his watch?
Thank you, sir. Sir, as I mentioned in my original answer, we exchanged emails in mid-March. I've had exchanges on LinkedIn in April, sir. So it's wrong to say that the last correspondence was in February. Thank you, sir.
Very well. We come to question 6 that Deputy Coles will ask of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether any convictions regarding an act of homosexuality has ever been quashed or overturned?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question, which has not been straightforward to answer. Article 1 of the Sexual Offences Jersey Law 1990 was registered on the 28th of September 1990 and enacted the decriminalisation of homosexual acts in private. The law does not give a person convicted of an offence of homosexuality prior to 1990 the right of appeal to have that conviction squashed. Following the enactment of the 1990 law, it is therefore unclear whether such an appeal is possible. If there was such an appeal, it is more likely that it would have to take place in the Royal Court or the Court of Appeal. Appeals from the Magistrates' Court, convictions are dealt with in the Royal Court. Appeals from the Royal Court, convictions are dealt with in the Court of Appeal. Officers in the judicial grefg have reviewed judgments of the Royal Court and Court of Appeal, which post-date 1990, and have not been able to find evidence of any such appeal having taken place.
Supplemental question, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. In 2017, the UK introduced the Turing Law, named after Alan Turing, the computer pioneer, and was expanded again in 2023 by the Home Office. Would the Minister commit to investigating whether such a law could be passed over here to allow easy and simple overturns and quashing of these convictions?
Simple answer to that question, yes, sir, I am more than happy to have a look, and I'm fully aware of this legislation.
Deputy Tadier.
Thank you. And whilst the answer might have been partly given, the first answer really referred to appeals being necessary for individuals to get convictions overturned. Does the Minister really acknowledge that this misses the point? It should not be up to an individual to appeal a conviction which we now I think would all find morally objectionable, especially if that person may no longer be alive to do the appeal. That there should be an automatic system where all of these convictions are quashed on a wholesale basis.
So I don't disagree with the principle of what the Deputy's saying. I think the only concern I might have is that there are different legislation, as in different terminology and words used. So as an example, prior to the decriminalisation in 1990, the law provides that the criminal offence used was to be charged as sodomy. So that I can see what the Deputy is asking, but my only concern is that because the data may not be up to what it should be, I'm just concerned that we may miss some opportunity because there will be different terminologies and different words used, and a search has been made. What I can verify as well is that the State of Jersey Police don't have any of the data either. So I think it might be a piece of work that will need to be done to actually see what we can actually do, if that makes sense, working with this, and see if there's anything that we can actually do to actually move this forward.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yeah, thank you. I think the answer is helpful, first of all. In practical terms, for individuals who are still around, it may be a simple case of making sure that those who have got a criminal record and for whom that criminal record is relevant and perhaps searchable or declarable need a way to make sure that that is no longer on their criminal record as a first step. Would the Minister agree that might be an area to look at?
Yes, sir, I do. I think to me it does make sense, and I think it would be the right thing to do.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree with me that if there are any pardons or if any sentences are going to be quashed, that this should be accompanied by a full and unreserved apology to the victims of this institutionalised discrimination? And indeed, would she offer an apology today as a gesture on behalf of government for the historic harms that have been caused?
I think that's I can make an apology on my own behalf, sir, but I think it would be inappropriate for me to make an apology on the behalf of anybody else. And, you know, from my perspective, I think it is right and proper that an apology should be made for criminalising people in these sorts of circumstances. So I, from my own perspective, would be quite happy to do that, but I think it would be wrong and inappropriate for me to make a generic apology on behalf of anybody else.
A supplemental question, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. And would the Minister agree to engage with members of the LGBTQ+ community, both within the Assembly and in the community, to help resolve this matter?
Yes, of course, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister agree to keep this Assembly informed as to the progress through this legislation review? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Very well, we come now to question 7 that Deputy Dublé will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister provide an update on the diversity, equity and inclusion strand of work and advise how this will be progressed?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. The diversity, equity and inclusion work programme continues to be an important area of focus. Deputy Alves, as an Assistant Minister in the Chief Minister's Department, has recently been delegated as a political lead for this work and will take up the task of raising the equality and diversity agenda, including addressing such issues as the gender pay gap. This change has been made with the agreement of the Home Affairs Minister. Deputy Alves will be reviewing the work programme of the previous government and progressing accordingly, sir. I can also, just to reiterate that this government is committed to pursuing diversity, equity and inclusion for the benefit of both the communities and our own employees. And thanks to the work of a number of dedicated officers, we have completed a draft of the DEI strategy for government, which is currently being reviewed before publication.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank the Chief Minister for his answer, and I'm delighted to see that Deputy Alves has been given responsibility for this work, that it will continue. Could the Chief Minister confirm whether the previous action plan that was being progressed by myself and Deputy Jeanne under the delegation from the previous Home Affairs Minister, whether this, all the areas in the action plan will be continued, whether any areas will be stopped or changed?
I can't confirm that level of detail, sir, but I can confirm that Deputy Alves, I believe, is keen to, for the continuity of the programme, so I feel confident it will progress as planned.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. As the Chief Minister aware, the Jersey International Cultural Centre has been created a year and a half ago to support inclusion of the minority communities in Jersey. The work was put on hold in January to review. Can Chief Minister confirm that he made the decision and the work of the Jersey International Cultural Centre can progress?
Yes, sir, I can, sir. We are going to continue to support that work, but not in with a similar budget to what it had previously. I am mindful, sir, that I'm due to meet with the Deputy and other interested members in due course, sir, to clarify the position and agree a way forward. So there will be a continuity, sir, but not in its current, in its previous format.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Yes, sir. We have the Chief Minister and myself have had discussion in February, and I saw that we have agreed on the updated budget and updated work. The community at the meantime wondering why the project that was shortlisted to the Furrow event as a government project stopped, because currently none of the work that happened is happening.
So it did stop due to some concern of previous aspects of the ICC, sir, and it's part of the new government's
Sorry, that was extremely kind for the musical interlude. Who? Thank you. Well, not at all. Thank you for your contribution to the Grefcase Fund. Please carry on.
I do apologise. It's taking a little longer to agree, sir, and I apologise for the delay, but it's part of our work to reprioritise spending, to make sure our spending is going absolutely to where it is needed. So I do undertake to get things back up to speed with that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. I'm also pleased to hear that Deputy Alves has been given this responsibility. Can the Chief Minister confirm, does she have resources to support her in progressing this agenda, please?
She will do. Sir, I had a conversation with Deputy Alves about that very issue yesterday, sir, and officials to ensure she is properly resourced to do the work. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy. Final supplementary, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister keep the Assembly updated on the progress of this work? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We come now to question 8 that Deputy Gardner will ask the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Will the Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made in extending the pilot scheme allowing French nationals to travel to Jersey using a French national identity card to stay in Jersey for up to 3 days?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. The French day trip scheme, which was launched in 2023, has been very successful, with approximately 49,800 day trips from France to Jersey, and 17,600 of those trips, as in 35%, was where travellers used the ID card. It is aligned with the new Council of Ministers' commitment to develop the visitor economy and our links with our French neighbours. But we are also part of the common travel area, which is a responsibility that we share. Together with Customs and Immigration, I've explored options to expand the existing day trip scheme. However, there's significant security and operational risks that cannot satisfactorily be mitigated. And I do not therefore envisage that the scheme will be widened to allow visits of up to 3 days. I will keep this under review, but can confirm the existing arrangements for the day trips will continue until the end of September.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you for the Minister for her response, and I completely agree that we need to assess the risks. We all know about the risks, and we also need to consider how we do manage the risk. Would the Minister advise how many discussions or emails she personally had with her counterpart at the Westminster for maintaining or discussions to maintain or expand the possible schemes and discussion about the risks?
Thank you, sir. In relation to Westminster, there has been 2 letters which were received previously, which both raised concerns in relation to not only the day trip, but extending it further and beyond what was already the case. There's continuing work by the Immigration Department to see what we are going to be able to achieve when, at the latter part of this year, we introduce an electronic travel authority. Because obviously at the moment, what we would, our biggest want would be to be able to continue with the 24-hour day trip. And so therefore that is the priority at this stage. And that is ongoing work that Customs and Immigration have had with that department. Personally, I have had not direct contact with Westminster, but there are two letters from one from a previous minister from Westminster and one from a current one, actually raising concerns in relation to this particular project.
Very well, we come to question 9, that Deputy... Sorry, Deputy Barrett, you were looking to ask?
I'm sorry, had you closed the previous question, sir?
Normally when I come on, yes, not normally if there's no one indicating a desire to ask, then I move and close. I'm sorry. We come to question 9. The Deputy Wilson will ask for the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what approach, if any, the government is taking to optimise the benefits of artificial intelligence in Jersey's economy?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And it's a really interesting question because there's no question in my mind that artificial intelligence will be key, or it will be a key technology to helping the island address its main economic challenges, especially around the issues of increasing the productivity of our economy, but also many other areas. To fully benefit from artificial intelligence and optimise its benefits, at the moment we are focusing on the adoption of artificial intelligence as a tool by companies, particularly small and medium enterprises. We're also looking at the adaptation of our legislative framework where necessary to ensure a safe and innovative ecosystem. And in that respect, I think we need to look towards places such as the European Union that have brought in a wide range of initiatives around that. And also we're focused on creating an environment where particularly innovative companies are able to develop artificial intelligence-based innovations that put Jersey at the forefront of technical innovation as part of our technology sector.
A supplemental question, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Minister for his answer. It's encouraging to hear. Could I ask the Minister where he thinks there is going to be an impact on the island's workforce and what he might do about this, how he'll prepare the workforce for the introduction and development of AI across the island?
Thank you, sir. There's no question that artificial intelligence has the capacity to create significant changes in the workforce and have significant impacts on the workforce. But these can be very positive in many different ways, freeing people up to focus on other, often more creative tasks than they're engaged in today. So there's no question in my mind, financial services, legal profession, anywhere in the technology sector, the medical sector and the health sector, these are areas where you can find artificial intelligence both enabling greater processing and therefore creating greater evidence, particularly in the healthcare sector, enabling greater analysis is what I mean of the situation in Jersey. And areas such as financial or legal sectors, it could speed up and potentially have an impact on jobs in the administration areas of those areas. So there was a great deal written about the impact of artificial intelligence on employment. And I do think it's something that, as we look back over history, whenever technology has come in and changed the workplace, we as people have moved on to engage in different jobs and adapt to those changes. There hasn't been a technology that has particularly put everyone out of work and then work not to be available afterwards, which is often the great fear with artificial intelligence. And I subscribe to the view that jobs will change rather than jobs will disappear forever.
Deputy Taddy.
Thank you, sir. We talk of AI as if it's something that's going to happen in the future, but of course we know that AI is already with us and it's just developing at an incredible rate. Does the Minister believe that the government is ready in terms of governance structures, but also the impact that artificial intelligence will have on government structures itself to make sure that we're all ready for those changes that it might bring about?
So I'm not well placed to know whether government as a whole is ready. What I do know is that government is beginning to adopt the use of artificial intelligence in different areas. Just simple, the use of tools such as those packaged with our existing Microsoft products that enable quicker processing of emails, things like this, that is beginning to take place within government. My impression, but it is only impression, is that we as a government have a long way to go before fully understanding how we could use artificial intelligence within the administration of the island and the impacts that it could have. But I may be mistaken because I'm not best placed to have that view.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yeah, so in terms of the economy, we're often told that, and I suppose the economy and taxation, we're told that people pay taxes, not companies, generally, in Jersey. If we're moving to a situation where there's more productivity, but because of AI and artificial intelligence are doing some of the jobs, has any consideration been given to how we tax work that might be being done by AI and the profits that might be created through AI, which might have been ending up in people's salaries before, may not happen in the future? Is consideration being given to that?
So another fascinating question. Unfortunately, as taxation doesn't fall under my remit, I am not aware of any work that has been done in that area. The Treasury Minister may be more aware of that, but certainly I'm not aware of any work in that area. But it's an interesting question and one that I believe as politicians the Assembly probably does need to think about.
Final supplementary question, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister if he would give some consideration to some sort of a task force or policy think tank of some kind to actually explore all of the issues that have just been raised through these couple of questions?
So absolutely, we'll be publishing the digital economy strategy next month, and part of that refers to artificial intelligence, and I do believe, I agree with the Deputy that having a range of minds looking at this would be a good idea. I do believe that in Jersey we have so many people who are already kind of experts in this field or using artificial intelligence in different ways that we almost certainly have a lot of that expertise on island. So I do think that's a good idea, and I'll look to progress that.
Coming now to question 10, the Deputy IA will ask the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what changes, if any, he intends to make to the Licensing Jersey Law 1974 to simplify and improve the law? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The work is underway to bring forward a series of amendments to the existing licensing law rather than replacing the existing law with a new law, as was attempted in 2017 but ultimately failed. Many of these changes will be focused on the Common Strategic Policy commitment to reduce red tape and lower the barriers to business. Amendments are likely to include changes to the licence categories, the licensing assembly and the way that that operates, and also the regulation of drinks promotions, amongst others. Amendments will be shaped through engagement with the industry and other sectors of government.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. In his ministerial statement, part 3, he said that he intends to review the Tourism Law 1948, the Licensing Law 1974, to ensure they are fit for purpose and enable businesses to operate efficiently within the sector. When does he intend to have such a review? And if he does intend to have such a review, how long will does he believe it will take? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I'm seeking to fast forward that. I don't want to go down the road of just a review that takes a year and then pushes things back further. I think it was mentioned recently in the media that a great deal of work has been done, and that's quite correct, on licensing law, including the kind of failed 2017 attempt to bring in a new law. So we'll use the work that has already been done. We'll use a lot of knowledge that we already have, such as are the license categories fit for purpose? Almost certainly not. They were created in 1974. And things have changed since then. And so I think the approach that I'm asking my officers to undertake is one which is more directly focused on changes to the law rather than reviewing. But we will be doing that in conjunction with the hospitality sector, because they obviously need to feed into that, and also areas such as the police, who have to police these things as well.
Deputy Tadia.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state whether he thinks, under the law, whether things like minimum unit pricing of alcohol, opening hours, and drinks promotions, who should be the people that make decisions on those kind of questions, and what does the current law allow for?
So, as I understand it, the current law allows for the licensing assembly to address such questions, and the Attorney General, I believe, with drinks promotions, that's what has happened in the past. I see a future amendments to the licensing law taking that away from the licensing assembly into and vesting it here, as we passed a proposition in the last assembly which asked for political control of such things as drinks promotions and so on. And so that is what I intend to try to bring forward.
Supplemental question, Deb.
Thanks, sir. We see that government and even law drafting can act very quickly in certain areas such as cybersecurity, digital, fintech, financial services, laws that need to be drafted in relatively short order and which are well resourced to be able to do that. When it comes to things like unlawful entertainments and licensing laws, often these things go back 20, 25 years when the first recommendations were made. And we're still being told by this minister that it's going to take maybe 3 years in the next government before any changes are happening in this area. Can the minister explain perhaps why there seems to be a difference in approach to getting laws passed, on the one hand very quickly and on the other very slowly?
Thank you, sir. I believe the answer there is well above my pay grade, because I don't have a view of the Law Officers Department, the Law Drafting Office and the government and the judiciary to understand why some things are prioritised. I'm not the Chief Minister. I can't prioritise legislation, particularly myself, so I don't have that view and don't understand that. What I will say is that I haven't said it will take 3 years to bring forward all of the changes. I would like to see these changes brought in before the end of this term. With regard to the triennial regulations, the reason they are being asked for 3 years is just to make sure we have the comfort, because things such as law drafting office time are not under my control. And so I can't know whether we will be able to control that or not. So that is purely for comfort. It is my intention to get this delivered in this assembly, because I don't want these changes, which have been talked about. As I mentioned earlier, 2017, there was an attempt to change the licensing law. It failed, it went nowhere. Maybe it's gone back 25 years, these discussions, I don't know, but I would like to see us make significant changes.
So can I just clarify something I said? I wasn't suggesting the problem was at the law drafting stage. I think it's before things get to law. It's just to clarify.
Sorry, Deputy. No, there's no opportunity for a point of clarification during question time, I'm afraid. It's a question and answer, and that's all it can be. I have Deputy Alex Curtis, then Deputy Renniff, then Deputy Miles, then the Connétable St Mary, and no further questions other than the final supplementary. Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Following Deputy Hadier's second question there, could the Minister identify why he believes it would take so long to bring changes, even to be lodged by 2026, given the abundant evidence and knowledge base within the community about what needs to be done?
Sir, I'm pleased the Deputy believes that there is abundant evidence in the community and agreement, I suggest he's implying. I'm not so sure that there is such clear agreement. I think it does depend on where you turn and who is asked. I think it's really important. I have not at any point suggested that this will take longer than this term of office. That isn't something I've suggested. That seems to have come from somewhere else.
Supplemental question,
Thank you, sir. Assuming that there isn't such widespread agreement, does the Minister not agree that some very simple elements of the licensing law, if the law is to be amended rather than replaced, could be presented by the end of this year?
I won't make a commitment, sir, to the end of this year, but I will make the commitment to as soon as possible, sir.
Very well. Deputy Renniff.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister state whether he is of the opinion that some decisions, the licensing decisions currently taken centrally by law officers and so on, could be delegated to parishes? And if so, would he put that in his list of things to be actioned before the end of this term?
Sir, I'm not convinced that delegating further to parishes would make life easier for any businesses. The delegation to parishes creates 12 different licensing assemblies. I believe the system at the moment where parishes have their own licensing assembly and provide a recommendation according to what they see as the impact on their local area is appropriate. I think that should be maintained. But I don't see delegation going any further, because that, I believe, will fragment things further than they currently are.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, sir, maybe there's a trade-off here. I mean, the Minister has spoken about his desire to reduce red tape. Having one parish licensing assembly recommending to another licensing assembly seems to me to be an example of red tape. Could he not at least trial, perhaps with St Helier, the idea of a licensing assembly at the parish level?
So I have to go back to the idea that 12 different licensing assemblies as the ultimate authorities will only create confusion for the business community. So we are being told constantly that it is so difficult to know where the people are meant to turn when they are applying for things such as licenses. So I don't agree with that. When the deputy suggests that there is red tape in the parish licensing assembly providing a recommendation to another licensing assembly, I understand what he's saying. But I believe that what the parish does is give the very local view as to the impact of that licence on the parish and the neighbourhood. I think that's really important, and I think that's important to be maintained. And so the licensing assembly, in whichever form that takes, having the knowledge that the local area is for or against a particular licence, I think is really valuable knowledge.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. We've heard a lot about the economy strategy and tourism. Can the Minister give us some reassurance that the public health aspects of the licensing law will be appropriately considered?
So I believe there may be some role for public health in this, but I believe that licensing law is to be primarily focused on the licensing of premises and the sale of alcohol. I believe that public health's role is in the education of the island around alcohol and its impacts, rather than having a direct role, particularly in licensing. So.
Supplemental question, Deputy Miles. Connie St Mary.
Thanks, sir. As regards the failure of the previous draft law in 2017, to which the Minister refers, does he accept that such failure arose from the actual withdrawal of the proposition by the Minister of the day in the face of constructive comments from the scrutiny panel of the day? And looking forward, will he confirm, if he's able to do so, that any future licensing assembly will not be made up of states members as was envisaged by such draft law?
So it strikes fear in my heart that states members would sit on a licensing panel. So I don't think that is a particularly good way to I don't think politicians should be tasked with awarding licenses or not. There are so many dangers around that, sir, that I would not take that sort of suggestion forward.
Supplemental question, Connie Tarp.
Just grateful for the Minister's reassurance. Thanks, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. When the Minister considers amendments, will he be considering the no dancing on Good Friday and other anomalies in the licensing law? Thank you, sir.
So is that because the Deputy wishes us to maintain the no dancing on Good Friday or otherwise? So I do believe some things which, I use this word in its loosest sense, and I'm not demeaning in any way at all, but some things which some people would view as anachronistic, this is an opportunity to look at those sorts of situations. And yes, I do believe that does need to be looked at. If people have objections, obviously, to dancing on Good Friday, then they should make us aware of that. But my stance would be that dancing can take place on any day. So every day is a good day to celebrate with dance.
Very well. We now come to question 11. The Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Let's see if we can get this one right. Will the Minister advise if he consulted the Chief Minister or the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee before offering Deputy Balash responsibility for certain health matters? What responsibility the Deputy has been given, and what impact, if any, this has had on the Troy Rule, which limits the number of deputies in government?
Sir, I've not appointed Deputy Balash as an Assistant Minister or offered him any ministerial responsibilities for health matters. As such, I don't believe my actions have any impact on the Troy Rule and didn't require me to consult with the Chief Minister or the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee, sir.
Well, supplemental question, Deputy Southern.
Yes, sir. Could I ask again then, what responsibility has the Deputy been given by the Minister and what limits has this had on the Troy rule?
I think I can do no better at this stage, sir, than to repeat what I've just said, that Deputy Balash was not appointed for any ministerial responsibilities for health matters.
Point of order, the question was surely what, sorry, the question was surely what, what responsibilities had been delegated. That's what I understood the follow-up question to be.
And the answer from the Minister was he's delegated no responsibilities. It may be that a request has been made to carry out work, but the answer, I believe, unless I misunderstood you, Minister, is that you have given no responsibilities. That's as I understood your answer. It may be there's a
Sir, I shall stand up. No formal responsibilities for health matters.
Well, now I've got to challenge you, Minister, because you've just said no formal responsibilities. Your original question was responsibilities, and now you've said no formal responsibilities. So if there are responsibilities...
What I said in the first instance, no ministerial responsibilities. So apologies for that mistake.
No, not at all. No, Minister, very well. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, so clearly something has been, Deputy Balash has been asked to do something, and so no one is questioning the right of the Minister to ask people to try and find out information, but why did the Minister not, in this instance, use his civil servants to do the work, or failing that, ask one of his assistant ministers' team? Is it not the case that if the report or work or whatever it is had been commissioned through official channels, then it would have had greater weight?
Minister.
Sir, the work related solely to taking a series of statements of people who wanted to speak to me. So I only have a limited amount of hours in the day, and it appeared that an awful lot of people wanted to make their points known to me. I thought it was appropriate to pick somebody like Deputy Balash, who was independent of the ministerial team and would be held in high regard for the purpose. So I thought it was a good choice, and it was a fairly simple request to undertake that particular piece of work, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Could the Minister clarify whether or not he spoke to his chief officer about this work before it was commissioned, and would he agree that the lack of formal commissioning, terms of reference or oversight mean that this was just an exercise in gathering gossip, and that is not necessarily going to be particularly helpful to draw conclusions?
That's an interesting term of phrase, gathering gossip, sir. In the end, 30 senior consultants have come forward to speak to me. I would venture to suggest that there's probably nobody in this assembly that hasn't been treated by one of these people, or certainly one of their family members. I think they're held in high regard, and I think these people have got better things to do with their time, sir, than indulge in gossip.
Yeah, I now have Deputy Jeune, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Balash, Deputy Doublé, and Deputy Gardner, and then final supplementary, no further questions. So, Deputy Jeune.
Yes, so could the Minister please clarify if there were any written terms of reference for Deputy Balash to follow, including what follow-up how he will present his findings to the Minister, and if not, why not?
No, there were no formal written terms of reference because it was a simple a request to take some statements. In the end, it ran into a larger piece of work than I was expecting because more people wanted to speak to me than I'd thought in the first instance. I did ask Deputy Balash if he would be kind enough to just summarise his findings for me for convenience.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jeune.
Yes, sir. Is the Minister aware that he was asking Deputy Balash to tread in a very sensitive matters of employment relating to employer-employee relations, and this could compromise discussions going on elsewhere of which Deputy Balash may not have been aware?
No, sir, this was simply an exercise in conveying messages from people to me because of the volume of work that I have and the fact that I was unable to do it. It involved no more than taking statements from people for that to be passed on to me, sir.
Deputy Tadier.
Sir, it's strange to say that the Deputy Balash isn't doing any ministerial work, because of course he's not a minister, therefore he can't be doing any ministerial work. So the question still needs to be answered. Why is a member of the Health Scrutiny Panel doing departmental work for the Minister for Health.
So at the time of commencement, Deputy Bolash wasn't a member of the panel.
So there is a wider problem here, and I'm wondering if the Minister sees it as a conflict of interest, which I think so many other members do, hence why this question seems to have been lodged. That if you're not a member of the executive, it's very strange to be asking somebody to act effectively as a private secretary for you, which might be the case in other parliaments, when the minister has his own fairly large ministerial team to do that work and also civil servants to do that. Would the minister agree to publish the nature of the work that's being done, and also ask for that work to cease immediately, so that this assembly isn't brought into disrepute?
So I don't think for a moment that this assembly has been brought into disrepute. I think there were 4 or 5 requests there, and I may need to be reminded of them. I'll start with the last one first because I can still remember it. The work has been concluded, sir, and I'll make a further statement insofar as I spoke to the chair of the Scrutiny Committee, and we had an exchange of emails. I explained the nature of the work, and I received on the 4th of April an email stating the following. Given the fact that this work was already undertaken before the panel was formed, we discussed the timings around when it would be concluded. I'm content to give a reasonable time frame for the work to conclude and for any conflicts to then be avoided. On that basis, we continued. I have to say, if the work was to be discontinued, that was a matter for the chair of the scrutiny panel, so between the chair and Deputy Bolash.
Well, Deputy Bolash.
So would the Minister agree that very heavy weather is being made of this issue, and that in a collegiate and cooperative assembly, any backbench member is free to offer assistance to any minister without attracting carping criticism from other members?
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, sir.
Assumingly no supplementary, Deputy Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister please confirm that I had asked for the work to be stopped as soon as I was aware of the full nature of the work? I asked for this in a telephone conversation where I explained to the Minister the Troy Rule, and I followed this up with an email where I once again explained the Troy Rule, and I also requested that the work should be made fully transparent. Can the Minister confirm this, please?
I can't confirm the latter because that wasn't where the conversation ended. I'm certainly happy to publish the email exchange between us. Sorry, there was another part to the question which I've forgotten, but I'm certainly happy to make the email exchange public, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Doublé.
This is, so the Minister didn't hear part of my question. What I had asked was, can the Minister confirm that when I asked for the work to stop, that I also asked for it to be made fully transparent?
As far as the transparency is concerned, I think everything is contained in this email exchange, sir. When people approach me to talk privately about their concerns, I certainly don't expect members of this assembly to ask for that to be made public. It would be similar in another way to asking the Speak Up Guardian to make public all the comments that have been made to the Speak Up Guardian. So, and I think that's totally out of order, if I may say so.
Well, so I don't think the Deputy was asking for you to publish the responses, unless I had misunderstood the position. It was to publish her view of what was going on, and that she asked for full transparency. Was that not your question, Deputy?
I can clarify, sir. In my letter, I asked for the terms of reference, membership, agendas, minutes and reports of any work undertaken in a similar way to the policy development boards, and actually indeed the Women's Health Strategy Group, which is also under the Health Minister.
Sir, there weren't any minutes or agendas. They weren't formal meetings as such. It was simply Deputy Bolash listening to people's concerns, putting them on paper and then handing them to me for my attention. Because this is actually, there's a pretty serious problem in HCS that I'm trying to address, and it's strange that members of the Assembly seem to want to focus unnecessarily on a very simple process, rather than being concerned about the issues that I'm trying to resolve, sir.
Very well. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Nobody questioning that the member of the Assembly can do work. The question is why this hasn't been made in the proper way, requesting if the Deputy Balash can undertake specific work with the terms of reference for the Minister and explaining the reasons why Minister cannot use 3 assistant ministers, why Minister cannot use Speak Up Guardian, why Minister doesn't use Health Board that needs to listen to the concerns, why the Deputy Balash was the only member of the states could listen to the employees, which States Employment Board is available.
Minister.
Sir, I think I counted 7 points there. I've got a very bad memory. I can't remember them all.
Well, I think you can summarise them. Why didn't you ask for a number of other people?
I'll start with the Speak Up Guardian. Could we not assume that these 30 people that have passed on their thoughts to me are intelligent people? If they thought it was appropriate to use the Speak Up Guardian, I suggest they would have done. There must have been reasons why they didn't. I wasn't aware of a formal process for asking for this sort of what I would consider to be relatively minor work to be undertaken. It's simply conveying people's thoughts to me, sir. As I say, if there is a process, I'm not aware of it.
Sir, could I just, the Minister may be inadvertently misleading the Assembly because I made it very clear in my email to him what the process
you will have
would
to
be.
you will have to take this up outside of the Assembly at this point. We've reached the end of the... You have a supplemental question you are entitled to, Deputy Gardner, I think.
Yes, thank you. The Minister didn't respond why his 3 assistant ministers couldn't, just a minute, can I finish the question, please? Why 3 assistant ministers couldn't undertake this work and why Health Board couldn't undertake this work?
Take them in reverse order. The Health Board couldn't undertake this work because as an elected representative, we do live in a democracy and people have got a right to speak to me. I did start to speak to some of these consultants myself and I quickly realised that I wouldn't have the time. So there we are. In terms of why not the assistant ministers, I wanted to keep this work separate from the team so that I couldn't be accused of meddling in any way. And I thought that Deputy Balash was an appropriate appointment for this purpose. I'll make no apology for this either because it's an important piece of work. I want it to be done properly.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sir.
Thank you, sir. What I think I've heard is that the Minister is unaware of any mechanism by which he can legitimately consult with his consultants, which operate the health service in the hospital in particular. Is that the case? Is there no mechanism by which the Minister can consult with his consultants?
Minister.
The question is, am I free to do what I've done, sir? And I believe that I was.
Well, the question is there a mechanism in place for consultation with the consultants?
I'm certainly not. I did make that statement before, so I'm not aware of one. Thank you.
Very well. We come now to question 12. The Deputy Gardner will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to the adoption of P72/2023 as amended, will the Minister advise what progress, if any, is being made in extending the horse redressing scheme to include wound dressing to those with medical needs?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As I hope the Deputy is aware, the funded dressing scheme is one of my key priorities, and I'm pleased to report that we are now making good progress. There is now a dedicated team allocated to this project who are providing me personally with feedback on developments, and I am continuing to monitor this progress very closely, and I will be providing updates as soon as they become available. The Assembly has agreed that funding should come through the HIF. This does require that appropriate governance and legal frameworks are in place before funds can be released, but the team is doing everything that they can to implement an initial phase of the scheme as quickly as possible. We have spoken to key stakeholders, family nursing and home care and pharmacy contractors, and we're looking to launch the first stage of the scheme through a number of local pharmacies.
as soon as possible.
Thank you, Minister, for your question. It's reassuring that it's progressing. Can the Minister confirm that she has full backing from the Treasury Minister and the Chief Minister with 1 million funds that was allocated to this scheme?
The funding has been allocated through the Health Insurance Fund, and we have backing through the Assembly as this amendment was approved as part of the government plan in December, and the budget's approved within the government plan. But of course, as Social Security Minister, I am responsible for the Health Insurance Fund.
Kovac.
Thank you. Can the Minister say what recent communication she had with the pharmacies to see how they can collaborate in order to be able to deliver through them such scheme as soon as possible?
My team has been involved in active workshops with both family nursing and home care, and has been in close dialogue with pharmacies. The first phase that we are looking at in the first instance will focus on existing family and nursing home care clients, as the evidence suggests that those clients have the more longer term need for dressings, and the dressings will be provided from a local pharmacy. We're still working on contractual details, but we're aiming to get that stage launched within the coming weeks.
A final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Just for clarification, Minister responded that Assembly obviously approved the budget and the government plan. Does she has full support from the Treasury Minister, Chief Minister and General Council Minister to use these funds?
I am confident that I do have the support of my fellow ministers in relation to these funds.
Very well. We come to question number 14. The Deputy Doublé will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update on the development of the Women's Health Strategy and confirm when this will be published?
Thank you, sir. If I'm able to respond on behalf of the Minister, because he's given me a delegation for women's and children's health.
Yes.
The Minister has proposed that officers do not progress the production of a standalone, unfunded women's health strategy. This decision was supported by the Women's Health Political Advisory Group at our meeting in early April. The group recognised that there are limited staff resources to allocate to the development of a standalone strategy and agreed to focus on work that is already in train. This work includes a review of the termination of pregnancy law and funding for IVF and contraception services. The group also decided that once we have an opportunity to reflect on the findings of the ongoing Women's Health and Wellbeing public consultation, we will publish a statement of intent setting out other priorities that we will seek to address once we have supported delivery of our current activity. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Please could the Assistant Minister outline which areas will not be progressed?
It's very hard to say at the moment, sir, because we haven't at the moment received the consultation of women's health and wellbeing consultation.
Sorry, sir, could I clarify? I meant the areas that were being considered by the Women's Health Strategy Group for to go in that strategy. Which of those areas will not be progressed?
So I think I've explained what we are going to be doing and what we will be taking further when we have the result of the consultation. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Jean.
Thank you, sir. Does the Assistant Minister not agree with me that to be able to bid for funding, including when you're trying to get the Minister's trying to get funding for women's health within the Council of Ministers, that a strategy would be a good idea, a document to understand the way forward for women's health, and therefore be easier to get funding than to stop both?
Sir, I believe that the Deputy Jean is also a member of my Women's and Health Strategy Advisory Group, and I'm sure that together, it's across the States Assembly, this group, and we will be deciding together what we should be taking forward and what we should be asking for further funding for. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, the Minister, for the Assistant Minister for reminding me I'm part of that group. Unfortunately, I've not yet been able to meet that meeting, and I would, of course, and I'd like to put on the record, I would not have agreed to this.
This has to be a question.
Yes, but I would not have agreed to that decision.
Deputy,
so what will
really,
the Minister explain?
Political statement can't be made. You should ask a question.
So will the Assistant Minister explain what concrete steps she will take to reduce the concern by Jersey women that women's health yet again is being kicked down the road and not given the necessary priority or funding?
The decision not to develop a standalone strategy does not equate to a failure to recognise the importance of women's health. The opposite is the case. The Minister and I want to focus limited resource on delivering real change in key women's services, as opposed to producing yet another unfunded strategy. The Women's Health Advisory Group supports that position, and I welcome the fact that Deputy Jern will be part of the next meeting. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Does the Assistant Minister agree with the process to make sure that you need a strategy which will lead to the plan, which would lead to submitting business case to ensure that funding there, that the funding cannot come before the strategy? Does the Assistant Minister agree with it?
We will be meeting very soon for our next group, and we will discuss all this, but we will be asking for funding for further things for women's health going forward.
So my question wasn't answered. My question was, does the Minister agree that the strategy will need it to be able to produce business case, to be able to find the funding? I didn't, this was the question.
I understood the question, thank you very much. And that was the question. It's, do you accept that the strategy must become before the funding?
That we will have a strategy, but it won't be a standalone strategy. Thank you.
Do you, then I think have a supplemental question, don't you, Deputy? Or I already asked that. No, I don't. I mean Deputy Gardner. No, you asked me. No. Deputy Dubé, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could the Assistant Minister please inform the members of the public that are filling in the currently open consultation on women's health and who are expecting a women's health strategy, what form the statement of intent will take, what it will look like, how long it will be, and how much detail, and critically, will it be an evidence-based approach that can secure funding to make the real changes that women of this island need in their healthcare?
Thank you, sir. We are very minded that we should listen to the voice of women and girls on this island. And as a group, we promise that we will be really prioritising all that they say in their responses to our consultation. We take it very seriously, and we're very grateful for all of those who are filling in the survey as we speak. It goes on till the end of May the 21st. And then we will analyse what we are being told, and it will be evidence-based going forward, and I really prioritise women's and girls' health on this island. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, sir, my question was, what form will the statement of intent take, what length will it be, and what will it contain?
Are you able to answer any of those things?
I think we just will have to work as an advisory group, and I can't give you the detail at this time. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 15. The Deputy Jern will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Jern.
So he's not, the Minister is not present.
Well, the Minister is about to become present, it seems to me. Minister. So you won't mind me saying, I'm sure, that it is the responsibility of ministers to ensure that they're present when their questions are asked.
I do apologise, sir.
Yes, would you like to ask the question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise if sufficient funding will be provided for palliative care in the island before the implementation of any assisted dying legislation, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Sir, in 2023, the State Assembly agreed, as part of the government plan, to spend an additional between £2 and £3 million per year on end-of-life and domiciliary care services in Jersey. thereby driving improvements in the quality of palliative care and end-of-life care in advance of decisions being taken in the Assembly on assisted dying. The money is supporting the delivery of Jersey's palliative care and end-of-life care strategy, which is already helping to drive improvements to the services. At the point at which a draft assisted dying law is presented to the Assembly, members will be asked to agree that the law should not be brought into force until the Assembly is satisfied that the additional monies are delivering improvements in those services. If this cannot be evidenced, it would be for the Assembly to determine if more money should be provided to support these services. Furthermore, as explained in the assisted dying proposals, consideration is being given to bringing forward a new statutory duty requiring palliative care and end-of-life care to be provided by the Health Minister. It's envisaged that the statutory duty would form part of the proposed adult safeguarding law, which is currently under development, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Chair.
Yes, thank you, sir. We heard from the Minister that there's been £2 to £3 million have already been invested in 2023. Is the Minister aware that palliative care is only available for 5 days a week, and does he think this is acceptable level of service?
Minister.
Actually, I wasn't aware that that was the case. I'm not entirely sure that it is. If that is the case, then it's not ideal, but that money is in the process of being spent and the improvements are being made on an ongoing basis. So we're not at the point at which that money has been fully invested.
Very well, we come on to the next question, which Deputy Wall will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Further to recent media coverage regarding Durrell, will the Minister advise what consideration, if any, has been given to the economic and social impact to the island of Jersey Zoo closing its doors or Durrell moving from Jersey?
Sir, to my knowledge, I don't know of any work that has been undertaken to assess that impact. Obviously, it would be a terrible tragedy for the islands were Durrell to close its doors, and I don't appreciate why. I don't think that's how we should be thinking. There is obviously a situation going on within the trust itself, and it is for the trust to work that through. I don't think that we should, as an Assembly, be jumping to a conclusion of where that may lead, because I wouldn't like us to add to any of those problems. But as a registered charity, the trust is regulated by the Charities Commissioner. As such, they may possess such data, but we don't.
Supplemental question, Deputy Wall.
No, sir.
Well, we come to the next question that Deputy Reniff will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Further to the publication of the Royal College of Physicians' Jersey Rheumatology report, will the Minister provide an update on the investigation into the care provided by the Rheumatology Department to former patients?
Minister.
Sir, the investigation into past care and treatment provided by the Rheumatology Department is ongoing. HCS have now completed the review of all patients who were on biologic drugs, disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs, or who were otherwise under the care of the doctors referred to in the Royal College of Physicians report during the period concerned. We're now reviewing the case notes of patients seen by the two doctors in the period from January 2019 and who have subsequently died. To be clear, this would include many patients whose cause of death had nothing whatsoever to do with their rheumatology care. This final review involves a clinical audit to be followed by a mortality learning review for any case where concerns are raised. A further update will be provided once this final review is complete. All patients who were cared for under the Rheumatology Department in the period concerned or were seen as outpatients under the care of either clinician whose practice was referred to in the Royal College of Physicians invited review have been offered a review appointment and have now been seen. Work continues to determine levels of harm that may potentially have been caused to patients. We still have a duty to write to any patient who has suffered significant harm as a result of the treatment by HCS staff. This is part of the duty of candour, sir. We will, of course, be writing to any such patients very shortly. Mindful that some patients may wish to seek legal redress, HCS is working with lawyers to consider the most appropriate approach to medico-legal matters related to rheumatology. Our intention is to develop an approach that is patient-friendly, not overly protracted, and which represents a patient's right to seek independent legal recourse. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Supplemental question.
Yes, sir. Can the Minister provide a little more detail about the process that's currently underway to assess whether patients were harmed as a result of treatment in the Rheumatology Department, And in particular, are any outside organisations such as the GMC or the BMA involved in assessing patients?
So these are technical points that would probably be more usefully dealt with in written questions. So GMC and the BMA, I'm sure, have been involved in this process, but points of detail of that sort would be better submitted, I think, as a written question. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. What information does the Minister hold on the scale of harm suffered by patients, and what action is he taking to address the seriousness of what is being discovered by the review process?
Sir, I personally am not taking any action. There's a process underway, and we'll be having a look at the results of that when that process is completed. I hope that in the course of my first response that I detail what that process was.
Supplemental question, Deputy Chair. Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. When we talk about the nature of the harms caused to the patients who have received care and treatment in the rheumatology service over the last 25 years, is he aware of any instances where patients may have died from that treatment?
So these investigations are ongoing, and I think in any event it wouldn't be appropriate for me to make comments on that sort of question in the Assembly. So.
Very well. We come to question 18. The Deputy Moore will ask of the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he has contacted his counterpart in the UK government and what progress, if any, has been made to achieve a reciprocal agreement for Jersey children who are in care?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for this question. Further to the ministerial correspondence on 4th December with David Johnston, OBE MP for Minister for Children and Families and Wellbeing, officers from both governments have been working to progress the shared objectives of strengthening the legislative arrangements for those children in care placed off island. The scope of the proposed amendment to the Children's Prescribed Orders, Northern Ireland, Guernsey and Isle of Man Regulations 1991 has been agreed locally and communicated to officers at the Department of Education on the 11th of April. I have therefore not found it necessary to contact the Minister, David Johnston, as officers are engaged in this and we are moving forward. The Office of the Jersey's Children's Commissioner has also been notified and briefed on the extent of the amendments sought, as I am mindful that this work is consistent with the recent concluding observations report by the UN Committee, which made specific recommendations to strengthening the governance relating to off-island alternative care. And in fact, I spoke with the Children's Commissioner in one of my first meetings with the new Commissioner, saying how important I thought that it was to strengthen our position and to get these amendments made. Officers from the Department for Education have been requested to provide further advice regarding the next steps in this bilateral process, and we await their response to our communications of the 11th of April. The aim is to complete this project by the end of this year. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
I thank the Minister for his answer and update to the Assembly, sir, and I would simply ask whether he has given a private briefing to the relevant scrutiny panel.
Minister.
As yet, I have not, but I am quite happy to do so, and I can make arrangements for that to happen. Thank you very much.
Very well. We come to the final question, which Deputy Wilson will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister advise what government support will be provided to businesses to help them move from the minimum wage to the living wage, and how much this is likely to cost?
Thank you, sir. Moving to a living wage at 2/3 of the median wage as previously approved by the Assembly is, as we've heard earlier, and remains a priority, and the timetable has been laid out by the Minister for Social Security. Support will include targeted support to employees and employers during the transition period, and this will be achieved through focused support to individual sectors. I cannot give much more detail than that at the moment because the detail is currently being worked up by the Minister for Social Security and the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. But this government has been clear that we understand that businesses, especially in certain sectors, will need some bridging financial support to help them achieve the journey to living wage, which in turn will benefit the society and produce a more productive living wage economy.
Supplemental question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Could the Minister advise if it's likely that, or he believes that some businesses may not survive as a result of moving to living wage? And has he done any assessments of the likely impact on those who would struggle even with government support?
Assessments have been done along these lines in the past, and I think it is likely that we will see job losses. I hope we don't see businesses close. I hope support can be put in place to help businesses manage the transfer. Many businesses, when I say job losses, I think we might see job losses in certain businesses as they restructure themselves to make sure they are remaining viable as a business. But we do have capacity in the economy. So whilst some businesses might restructure and use jobs, I believe so those jobs will be taken up in other areas of the economy. So we won't see an increase in unemployment, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
So can the Minister confirm whether one of the forms of support he's looking at is subsidies to business to help them pay the living wage?
I don't believe we'll be going to direct cash subsidies as we did during the COVID pandemic. I think the ministers are going to be targeting more different types of supports which help businesses to become more productive and provide financial support in different ways. And as I said, I can't give the detail yet because the ministers are working that up, but I'm looking forward to receiving their report in due course.
Supplemental, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Can I then ask the same question I asked the Social Security Minister, which is, given that some businesses have already gone the extra mile and made the living wage commitment, what message does he have to those businesses who will now see their competitors potentially receive government support to achieve what they did without support?
Well, so I commend all businesses that have made that step, sir. Businesses will make decisions based on their own circumstances, and I'd like businesses to be able to do that in a free market economy with as little interference as possible. But the facts of the situation are, sir, that if we are going to bring in and legislate for a living wage, then some small businesses who cannot afford to get there, sir, because of their business models and their levels of income and their current staff structures, sir, will need help to get there. And so my message to businesses that are operating at that level is to congratulate them on their success, thank them for moving there, sir. But I also want to give a message to businesses that are concerned about this, sir, that we will provide as much support to them as possible.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. The Minister referred to a free market economy. Does the Minister not consider that in a free market economy it is generally the job of a business to determine its own viability, and if it is not viable in the current conditions, then it is a matter for them to decide how to deal with that rather than to seek further government subsidy?
Yes, sir, I wholeheartedly agree with that principle, with a caveat, sir. When a government or an assembly imposes a new procedure which imposes, in some instances, significant costs on businesses with which they have no choice, I think we are duty-bound to provide support for a short period of time for those businesses to bridge the gap, sir. After that, then we're back to the free market economy principles.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Whether it would be a true living wage in those circumstances is obviously a matter for some debate, and I imagine the Minister will bring that to the Assembly in the government plan, which we understand is due to be published shortly. So perhaps the Minister might tell the Assembly how much has been allocated in the government plan to provide this additional subsidy.
I will gladly tell the Assembly that, sir. When we have made the allocation, we haven't started the work yet on the government plan. That starts this Thursday morning at 9:30, I believe. And we will keep Assembly members informed of the process and, of course, lodge the government plan in, I think we're aiming for July, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has alluded to financial support being given to Jersey's low-wage economy businesses. However, as part of the transition, how will the Council of Ministers ensure that those businesses can be financially independent at the end of the term, that no assistance then will be given?
At the end of the day, sir, I don't think there are any guarantees that businesses will remain viable. It's up to the business owners and the business models and the way they operate their business. What I think we are duty bound to do so is help them make that transition. And as I said in the previous answer, sir, once they've made that transition, then it's up to them. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Andrews. I have Deputy Jeune, then Deputy Tadier, then final supplementary. Deputy Jeune.
Yes, thank you. And the Chief Minister in his previous answers alluded to the fact that he will come to the Assembly to make these decisions on potential kind of subsidies for businesses to go towards living wage. Yet his Minister for Social Security has said that to stop the report, the investigatory report that was published in December 2023. Can the Chief Minister assure the Assembly that evidence will be provided to the Assembly to help make those decisions, including the data that himself and the Minister of Social Security has been saying that has been taken, has been done since December, and also that consultations have been done with businesses around this potential subsidy and living wage, and if we will also see those results as well?
I'm not sure I fully understood the question, sir. Ultimately, any allocations to support, to provide support to business will need the approval of the Assembly, because that will have to be budgeted in the forthcoming government plan. I'm sorry, sir, could the Deputy simplify the other part of the question?
Of course, I'm asking if as well, when coming with that proposal to the Assembly in the government plan, there will be evidence to back this proposal.
Yes, sir, we will endeavour to provide as much relevant evidence and information as possible to support our proposal, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Deputy. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. A lot of the arguments that are being made about businesses not being able to cope or being affected by a living wage may well have been made back in 2003 when the minimum wage, which was set at £4.80, was introduced. To what extent does the Minister believe that it is government's job to assist industries which cannot comply with minimum standards in terms of payment? And if so, what is that intervention from government going to look like?
We still don't know what that intervention is going to look like. It's going to be quite a challenge because, for example, it's difficult to look at something like social security reductions because it's very difficult to manage that by specific business or sector. So, as I've said a number of times, so we're not sure what that's going to look like, but as soon as we do, we'll share that with members. And ordinarily, so it's not down to government to prop up and support businesses. We like the economy to manage and run itself so successfully. In every economy, you see great business successes, and unfortunately, you see business failures. But when we are changing legislation at relatively short notice over the next 2 years, that will have a significant impact, a critical impact perhaps on smaller businesses, I think we are duty bound to help where we can, sir. And as soon as we have a model for that help, sir, we will share it.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tuddy. Final supplementary, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Chief Minister, will he give some consideration to the employers who will suffer as a consequence of this transition in terms of support for skills training and other kind of diversification? And also, does he envisage any particular impact on the wider benefit system as a result of the introduction of the living wage?
I can give assurances that skills development is likely to play a key part in improving productivity and helping businesses bridge the gap. And the second part of the question, could you remind me, please, sir? Deputy, remind me.
Thank you, sir. It was to do with those, the impact that it will have on the wider benefit system. Will we see an increase in the benefits that people will need to access if they're no longer able to either be employed through living wage? Will it require a different review of the wider benefit system as a consequence of introducing the living wage?
It's my understanding that it won't, sir, because, like I said, we do have capacity in the economy that we shouldn't see an increase in unemployment, and also we should be mindful of the benefit to society of a living wage economy, which should take more people off having to rely on support. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to an end of questions with notice. We now come to questions without notice to ministers. The first period is for the Minister for Children and Families, Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. What progress has the Minister made in regard to the funding and development of a therapeutic children's home and services? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank you, Deputy AO, for that question. The therapeutic home I inherited the therapeutic home from the previous minister, and indeed supported the concept of a therapeutic home at the time. I think all of us at the time thought, isn't this marvellous? We'll be able to provide therapy for children. There were some delays in acquiring the building, and I'll come to that later, but that gave us time to actually do more research. The outcome was that, in fact, we didn't believe we needed a therapeutic home of the nature that had originally been envisaged. So as part of the transformation programme, work is now underway to scope a therapeutic offer to all children in the care of the Minister and those that are at the edge of care. This includes funding for a service led by CAMS, who will oversee a multidisciplinary team to support children and young people that sit within the Getting Risk Support, part of the emotional well-being and mental health Thrive model. These are children and young people who will be looked after or at the edge of care. The team will offer therapeutic interventions, case supervision, care coordination, and support to the children's workforce, including foster and connected carers. It has been agreed that all these placements, residential, foster care, and off island, must be therapeutic in nature, and therefore plans are being put forward to repurpose some of the original funding proposed for the therapeutic residential children's home into a specialist enhanced multidisciplinary therapeutic team. This team will provide care, coordination and outreach into the key services that support our most vulnerable children and young people who sit within the Getting Risk Support part of the Thrive model. In deciding not to proceed with the purchase of a single therapeutic student home, we considered the up-to-date sufficiency modelling and planning is required, as demand is currently below 2022, which formed the basis of the forecast presented in the social care reform case. This is being investigated.
Minister, I must ask you to bring your answer to an end. You're at 2 minutes already.
Oh, sorry, sir. I can say that with regard to the home, issues that arose were issues in regard to change of use, planning application. The owner became unwilling to sign the owner consent form. Neighbours started to raise concerns and objections, and the property, after a survey, did not lend itself to wider social care usage, such as residential, leaving care or semi-independent living. What I would like to say is that what we propose, I believe, will be the best offer for our vulnerable children. Thank you, sir.
I'm not going to single you out, but I've indicated before it is the norm 1 minute 30 seconds to answer. It's not in preparation for questions and answers. There's no reason why one shouldn't rehearse a way of answering a question in a succinct form, so it seems to me. Do you have a supplemental question, Deputy IO?
Nothing further, sir.
Honourable Sir Martin.
Thank you, sir. You recently, the Minister recently ran a campaign to fund foster carers for teenagers. Could you please enlighten the Assembly about the Minister's plans for the service?
Minister.
And I thank the Connotab for that question. As I'm particularly close to it and have made fostering a key part of my ministry, we recently launched a campaign timed for teens to recruit more foster carers, specifically to provide homes for teenagers. The aim is to encourage more people to consider fostering teenagers, which could help change those children's lives. What is more important than having a caring family around you during what are some of the most important times of your life as you gradually move into adulthood and prepare for independence? It is particularly sad that for some children this doesn't happen, and this can have a dramatic effect on not just your teenage years, but also in adulthood. We currently have 10 teenage children who require foster carers. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all those children would find a home? Care homes, of course, provide a loving and caring environment, but it simply isn't the same as having a family from which you can learn many of things we take for granted. The campaign highlighted that fostering a teenager can be a hugely rewarding role and can actually be less demanding than caring for younger children, who are often more popular with foster carers. But teenagers are usually more independent. The main role for carers during this time is to provide a secure base and focusing their energy on helping young people. And that is a lot easier to achieve when you are part of a family.
Minister, I must ask you to bring your answer to a close. You're at 1 minute 45 seconds.
Thank you, sir. Our campaigns are already showing some successes. So far, we have 6 approvals this year, 3 more coming on, 7 more in assessment, and 2 additional approvals for connected care. From the current campaign, we had, I believe, 17, I think, in total, people who were interested, and 6 applications have so far come through. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Connotab?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Jean.
Thank you, sir. My question was very similar, but I'm not sure, hearing the Minister, whether we got a full understanding of an update on the professional foster care scheme, what framework the Minister is using, how many professional foster carers the Minister believes are needed, and when will he see professional foster carers coming into the system?
Thank you for that question. Professional foster carers are, of course, something that I believe we should have. And we are currently looking at packages. At this point, I don't have a great deal of detail on that, but it is my belief that we should move from a position of care homes. There may always be a need for, one or two possible care homes, move from the position of multiple care homes to a fostering service. And as part of that, you do need, as I said, we do need professionals, particularly in some of the more complex cases. And I'm happy to come back to the Assembly when we have a framework for that and a package agreed. Thank you very much.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jones?
Yes, sir. So please could the Minister explain what happens to those children while they will be waiting for professional foster carers to be trained, this framework to be put in place and a timetable to be put, and I assume funding to be found?
Well, of course, those children are in our care already. They are in our care homes where we obviously try to provide a family-type environment. But as I said in my first response, it can never be the same as being with a family. Now, the move to foster caring is a change in policy, and that is going to require training people. So in the interim, those children still receive the very, very best care that we are able to give them today. I am aware that, that I've already said that they would be better in foster care, but we can't train that number of people in a very short space of time. And also, fostering is something where you will receive your training, but you can't then go immediately into a situation of, for instance, of intensive foster care. It takes some time to build up. Foster carers usually will take a child for a short time initially, and then gradually build up to having children full time. Some foster carers will keep them for years. The positions are different, but you can be assured that you have
Could you conclude your answer, please, Minister?
To make this a reality. Thank you very much.
Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware of recent research on the harms caused to children by screen use, and in particular social media? And what does he plan to do to address this?
I have heard very briefly about such a report. If Deputy Dublé has that report, then I'd be very pleased to receive that. At this point, I don't have a great deal of information, but I would say is that anything, absolutely anything that harms our children needs to be addressed. So I'd be very pleased to receive that report from her. Thank you very much.
Supplemental question, Deputy Dublé.
Yes, sir. It's not just one report. There is a growing body of evidence around this. For example, finding that social media could be as harmful to children as smoking or gambling. And there are impacts in terms of depression, anxiety, misperception of body image, addiction, and poor mental health outcomes. Would the Minister agree to task one of his officers with collating this research to help inform him on this matter so that he can look into what actions he might like to take?
Yes, I think I'd be very happy to do that. I'm aware of some of those issues. Some of the effects of social media can be extremely harmful to our children, and I know you've listed some of those, and I'd be very happy to do that.
Well, Connie Thompson, Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Some children don't need to be placed into foster care because they stay with family members under residency orders. How does the payment to foster carers compare to those who look after children under residency orders? Are they comparative? And if not, why not?
Thank you very much, Constable, because this is an issue that I became aware of very recently through my involvement with fostering, that in fact where fostering or a residency order with a connected family takes place, they do not receive the same level of payment as a foster carer. And whilst fostering isn't something that you wish to make money from, it should at least cover your expenses. I was quite concerned when I learnt about this, and it certainly is something that I intend to research and try to bring uniformity. I can't understand why, if a family, family relative is fostering, then they wouldn't have the same package as a foster carer. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Connie Tubbs.
Thank you, sir. I'm pleased to hear the Minister admit that there is a disparity, which I obviously knew before I asked the question. My concern is that there are families who have struggled with the money paid to them from a residency order, and they see now those who foster receiving more financially than perhaps they did or are receiving. My concern is that some of those children on residency orders have missed out because the money paid to them was a low amount. Will the Minister agree? Well, he has indicated that he is looking at this, but what will he do when he realises that there are families who have received far less financially than those who are now starting to foster? Will he make back payments to those whose children have missed out because they were on residency orders rather than being fostered? I know of examples of that, sir. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that. Well, first of all, we need to look at the situation. As I've said, I personally don't understand why there is a difference. Whether backdating can be considered, that's something that we would have to look at when we review this. I cannot make a commitment to that at the moment because I don't know the full facts. What I can say is, as I've said before, that I recently became aware of this, and obviously I intended to look into it, to ask officers to review it, and
I'm sorry, Minister,
thank you.
Time is up.
So, can I raise a point of order?
Yes.
Can I ask where ministers have spoken for longer than the allotted 1.5 minutes, do you have the facility to increase the time available for questions to that minister?
No, I'm afraid not, Deputy. The view I take is that if I have caused the injury time by, for example, ruling on a point of order which has not been used for questions and answers, then I will allow a certain amount of time for that. But if it is the case that either those posing questions are not disciplined and ask long and convoluted questions, or more so those giving answers which are not succinct and could have been done much shorter, I'm afraid there is no facility, which is why I do try and warn those answering questions more generally that when they're exceeding the norm for answering questions. And because the nature of delivering a long answer is that quite simply fewer people get to ask questions. And that's not the principles that question time in the Assembly operate to. But I'm also conscious of the fact that it is still moderately early days for ministers dealing with questions without notice because they come on a rotational basis, and it may be therefore that a certain amount of leeway is not unreasonable in the circumstances. Very well. We now come to questions for the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning, and Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. The pupil-teacher ratio has decreased from 16 pupils per teacher in 2024 to 13 per teacher in 2012 to 13 pupils per teacher in 2024, while the number of teachers has increased over that period. Does the Minister believe that schools are now overstaffed? Thank you, sir.
To put my answer quickly, sir, no, I don't.
Supplemental question.
How many more teachers does the Minister believe that the schools need?
And so that's almost an impossible question to answer without knowing the cohort and what needs will be required. What I will say, sir, is the nature of education has changed, particularly in the last 10 years, with a much greater identification of need and a much more addressing of that need. Staff in schools, and I wonder whether the deputy's figures include teaching assistants in terms of the ratio, because there have been an increase in teaching assistants. And I think it may well include that data. I'm not questioning the deputy's data, sir, just I'd ask him to question that himself. And that means there are more young people, sir, with one-to-one or short group support within the classroom, and that enables them to access education, and that's a really key thing. So if that's where the numbers are, and I believe that's where it may be, so I think we just need to look at the needs that are available. Thank you, sir. Quiet.
Well, Deputy Dublin.
First. So Deputy Gardner had her light on for quite a while before me.
I'm afraid I didn't see Deputy Gardner, but I'm perfectly happy to, there'll be time, I'm perfectly happy to call upon Deputy Gardner in due course, but I'm afraid it's as and when I see the light come on. But Deputy Dublin?
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister aware of what policies our schools have around the use of smartphones on school premises, either in lessons or outside of lessons? And what does the Minister think schools should be doing with smartphones?
Thank you, sir. I genuinely thank the Minister, Deputy, for the question, because what happens at the moment with the responsibility around smartphones really is to do with each individual school, and I think that developed during the increase to what was referred to as autonomy in schools. I do believe that schools are doing their best in terms of use of smartphones. It is very difficult to police, sir. Young people have smartphones at an early age, particularly in secondary schools, and there are so good reason to have a smartphone. You can contact parents on your way home, etc., and there is a safety feature. Many schools, sir, have a rule whereby smartphones are not used in classrooms. As simple as that. The process of it may seem an idea to say all smartphones will be taken into the school office at the beginning of the day. So I was in a school once that tried that. It lasted 2 days because 826 smartphones had to be accounted for within the first few minutes of the day. It doesn't work. We also, sir, do rely on parents. And I think that's an area that we need to work with educating and working with parents in that partnership with schools to look at the best use of smartphones and the risks around them. Let's be honest about it. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy Dubé.
Yes, thank you, sir. Would the Minister agree to work with the Children's Minister to understand the body of evidence around this and take under serious consideration whether some policies need to be put in place in schools to protect our children across all schools?
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I think the Children's Commissioner would be exactly the route to take. I would be wary about blanket policies in schools in terms of smartphones for all schools, because it depends on what is being delivered as well. So, for example, within IT, when I was teaching, so I know that we were starting to develop there's a thing called Quizlet, which is a really good way of getting students engaged at the end, and for the last 5 minutes we might say, right, it's a way of going through information. So it's a really delicate balance to have. But I believe as well, sir, that it's beyond just the use of smartphones. I think we need more intelligent policies, let me use that word, on screen time in schools as well, because it's the nature of modern education, unfortunately. But there is a balance to be struck there. So I would also say again, I think it's so important that parents understand what's happening with their children and smartphones. There were some quite worrying headlines in the press yesterday and today, actually. So.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree that the La Passerelle Primary, Springfield School and Janvrin School replacement projects should be placed on hold to make way for a skate park and a youth club on the Gas Place site?
Thank you, sir. And I do thank the Deputy for this question. No, I do not agree. Sir, I have brought the original amendment to the Bridge and Island plan to rezone Gas Place. So I have been to Passerelle Primary School, and so again I would like to have an open invitation to any member who wants to see the reality of what's happening in schools and the miracles that some schools are working with their young people. We desperately need to replace the Passerelle as part of the new development of Gas Place. That is in train. We do need to work on that and do it quickly. Every member is entitled to bring propositions, but just as much as that, sir, as a minister, I'm entitled to say I simply don't agree with it. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister confident that our children are getting enough sport and physical exercise opportunities at school and of a high enough quality?
Yeah, thank you, sir. That's a good question. PE is not my specialist subject. I have covered it in my time, but there you go. So I think there is a set curriculum in schools, certainly in primary and secondary schools, in terms of delivery of PE. One of the big obstacles to delivery of PE is not simply time, sir, but it's facilities. And I'm not trying to shoehorn this in, but I have to say it, sir. In some of our town schools where there simply isn't the space that is necessary, they are having to deliver PE in spaces that are simply not suitable for our young people. That would be the biggest risk to the delivery of PE, I think, in our schools. And the sooner we get on with improving those facilities, the better. However, so the schools do undertake really good projects with the work of Jersey Sport as well, delivering some of the PE in schools. There is a dedicated PE lead in each year group, I believe, in primary schools, and in secondary schools, of course, we have PE teachers and PE on the curriculum from all the way through Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, both for GCSE and as a compulsory part of the curriculum in Key Stage 4. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister have any plans to review any part of the current curriculum or the model, which I believe is quite a hybrid one, where schools decide how they spend their money and whether they bring in coaches from Jersey Sport, for example?
Yeah, so I'm sort of, I get a shudder down my spine when I hear the word review, to be honest. But I think what I would like to do is ensure that we have a better understanding of the success or not of those models. If they are working, let's continue them. If they're not working, let's look at replacement. I don't think one size fits all for our schools at the moment because of the nature of the facilities that they have. So we have to be quite smart and adaptable in what we produce, what we provide. And so yes, I'm happy to look at that. I think a full-scale review isn't necessary, but I think so as part of the development of the Jersey curriculum as well, which is ongoing, it will be something that we need to look at. Thanks.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Follow the Deputy Moore question. Would the Minister confirm that he does have a support of the Council of Ministers to progress with building of the school at the gas plants?
Thank you, sir. So I believe that is the case. We haven't been to the Council of Ministers with this simply because I believe so. It was government policy, which we agree with. I'm happy to go back to the Council of Ministers to get that support because I believe I have a very, how long have I got? 1 minute, 30 seconds, keep saying very strong case to support the development of a new school. And indeed, sir, my list of reasons for the school, which is in very small font, and to be honest with you, it's too small a font for me, is here. I won't read them all out, sir, because I will take up the rest of this 15 minutes of time. There are significant reasons for that school happening, and I firmly believe I can get the support of Council of Ministers, and I believe that's where we need to go forward, sir.
Supplemental question. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, continuing on that theme, there are at least two formal steps that will have to be taken to progress that school. One is to submit a planning application. One would be to buy the site from Andium. Can you provide any update on the timetable for doing either or both of those things?
Thank you, sir. No, sir, I can't provide a formal update. However, one of the first things I've done is to sit down with officers and say we need to push this project along as quickly as we possibly can. There was a meeting the other day, sir, between myself, the Minister for Infrastructure and Minister for Home Affairs, where we talked about the wider projects as well in terms of Rouge Bouillon. And it was a very pleasant end to that meeting where we had absolute common agreement on the way forward, not just for the next 2 years, not for the next 10 years, but for the next 40 years in terms of the provision of schools, ambulance, fire in the centre of St Helier. And so that's one of the larger projects that we have. But yes, I would like to pursue as quickly as possible the purchase of the land and the planning permission. So I really hope that we can have that at least the latest in place before the next election, so it is not an election issue. Then we can get on with actually providing that. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So will he undertake to keep the Constable of St Helier informed as his plans for those steps?
So it is always a pleasure to meet with the Constable of St Helier. We get on very well. We may have a difference of opinion on this, but absolutely. And indeed, sir, I would like to keep the Assembly informed, but most importantly, sir, I'd like to keep the schools and the children informed as to what's going on.
Deputy Sir.
What plans has the Minister have under consideration in order to increase and improve equality in our school system?
Thank you, sir. One of the things that happens and has been actioned, and I'm very pleased to support, is the funding formula changes. And what they did was they took the funding of schools wider beyond, from just beyond the average, the ALPU, average unit pupil, weighted pupil, I always get that wrong, someone can correct me in a moment, to a much wider definition, which recognise the difference in need across our schools. And funding goes specifically towards need as well as the number of pupils, the surface area of the school, the number of staff, etc. What that has done, that has focused funding into areas of more need in our 11 to 16 schools, for example, and I think that has improved the level of equity in terms of funding to begin with. The second thing we need to do in that area, sir, is we need to look at our curriculum. And we need to recognise that there was a false distinction between vocational and academic education, and that one size does not fit all in our education system. Thus, sir, the lifelong learning remit, which I'm very pleased to try and pursue.
Supplemental question, Deputy. Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. The Minister has outlined to the Assembly his priority to deliver a new primary school in North St Helier, but where within his priorities does the delivery of a youth centre in North St Helier lie, and could you give us an update on that?
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm obviously very keen on a youth facility in North St Helier. That is a delegated responsibility from the Children's Minister to Deputy Ferry, and I know that he's pursuing that. We communicate, so each week when we have our ministerial meetings, we have a 30-minute overlap so we can communicate with each other, but I know that's being pursued. Personally, sir, I still hang on to Nelson Street as a site, but because that was in the island plan, but I hang on to a lot of hope, sir, in this role and in my job. But I think there are other facilities that are becoming available that may work. But yes, I'm very hopeful for a youth facility in the centre of St Helier, simply, sir, because there are so many homes being built in that area. We need our children to have facilities.
Supplemental question.
Yes, thank you, sir. I completely agree with the Minister that due to the number of homes, there does need to be a youth facility. Will the Minister be able to tell the Assembly that he will push the Assistant Minister to deliver plans as quickly as possible and at least within the next year?
Thank you, sir. Well, it's not my Assistant Minister, but I don't think I have to push him because I think he's behind it as well. So, yes, absolutely, and that's something that we do want to do. So I think what we have in the centre of St Helier is the need to have some really joined-up thinking about the provision in terms of a new school which opens up other areas around the Ridgebroyan area, that produces a new park at Springfield so we have more green space, a youth facility that provides for the young people in the growing catchment area and the growing numbers who are being concentrated into the centre of town because of building. And so I think that we are starting to actually get that plan together and really look at ways forward, not just for this term, but way into the future. And so we have to think long term when it comes to education and young people.
There is no time for a further question to this Minister. 30 seconds. Deputy Coles, do you have a 30 second
I'll give it a 30 second. Given the plans to increase statutory age of education to 18, what plans does the Minister have to make sure this education is inclusive?
Yes, thank you, sir. And again, it's that division between vocational and academic education, which is somewhat false. So we need an education system up to the age of 18 that meets our needs, meets the needs of young people, and is focused on the needs of this island and the future of this island way beyond my term. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That's within about a second, I think, that was of the time available. The final period of questions is, as usual, to the Chief Minister. Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. With the release of the labour market report today, it is noted that there has been an increase in 450 jobs in the government of Jersey. How does the Chief Minister justify this figure?
Thank you, sir. I can justify, well, I can't really justify that figure, sir, but I would remind the Deputy that, at the best of my knowledge, the Labour report refers to December 2023 before this government took office. Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Will the Chief Minister, under his term of office, be increasing the amount of employees by the same amount, and is this what he regards as reprioritising spending? Thank you, sir.
No, sir. And if I may draw the attention of the Deputy to our proposed common strategic policy priorities, sir. One of our priorities is to, and I'm looking for it here, I can't find it so without my glasses, is to curb the growth in the public sector, sir, is one of our key priorities. Thank you. It's the age, I'm afraid, sorry.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Given that the CSP pledges to keep increases in government fees and charges low, why has the government raised parking fees by 7.22% when Jersey's inflation was only 5.7%?
Well, sir, that's a debate the infrastructure minister I had this week. The decision to do that was made, put in train in January, and we did when the cost of the RPI was much higher. As it happened, the timing of that, sir, the announcement was made on the day that we saw welcome news that the RPI was beginning to fall, by which place all the arrangements had been made for the 7.7% increase. We would, I think, have, had we foreseen it, looked at changing that. But what I can say is that that extra increase is being used for much needed capital investment in new parking, more provision for electric vehicles, and additional road safety measures. So while the department doing work on the road safety strategy, I can also confirm that the infrastructure minister has undertaken to make sure that the parking increase next year is much, much lower, and we go some way to compensating for the slight increases over RPI this time.
Thank you, sir. Given that the RPI figures are produced regularly and quarterly, that maybe communication is the key problem with this as well, with any parking strategies, road safety strategies. Does the Chief Minister commit to better communication?
We always learn, sir, and we're always caught occasionally with timing like this. And yes, I undertake to continue to learn. I'm learning daily on this job, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. We heard earlier that the Chief Minister wants to help businesses adapt in the short term to rises in the living wage. Why is his government not prepared to provide the same bridging help for EV, the island's main shared transport provider, given the high priority that the sustainable transport policy places on active and shared transport?
Deputy, repeat the question, sir.
Could you repeat the question, please, Deputy?
We heard earlier that the Chief Minister wants to help businesses adapt in the short term to rises in the living wage. Why is his government not prepared to provide the same bridging help for EV, the island's main shared transport provider, given the high priority that the sustainable transport policy places on active and shared transport?
Well, sir, to be clear, sir, we are, by introducing a living wage, we are putting by law increased costs onto businesses that operate specifically in certain sectors, sir. That's why we are undertaking to provide bridging support in that instance. With EV, sir, that's not the case. It's a case, and I don't know the detail, but I think the infrastructure alluded to it, sir, and I align with his thoughts, despite the fact that EV is a very welcome and innovative business that embraces environmental credentials, sir. It's not, I don't believe it's in difficulty for any government policy or any further cost we're imposing upon it.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir. In his statements regarding the CSP, the Chief Minister said that the government should focus on doing less. Are we now seeing the first fruits of that strategic focus on doing less? And that as a result, is he content that this means less in terms of supporting sustainable transport providers in?
No, sir. It's actually the aim is to do less, be more productive, and produce more results. That's why we selected 12 key priorities that we can deliver, rather than a wish list of 100 or so, sir, which we couldn't.
Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise if he has spoken to his counterpart in Guernsey to express concern with regard to the current border imposed between Jersey and Guernsey by the Guernsey Board Agency for those wishing to visit Herne by pleasure boat or tour operator? And if yes, what is the outcome of the discussion? If no, why not?
Not yet, sir. The External Relations Minister has just become aware of that, sir, and we're awaiting a briefing, but we will be having those discussions in due course, so along with other discussions of mutual interest with our neighbours in Guernsey.
Supplemental question, Deputy Jeune.
Yes, sir, thank you. Is the Minister aware that tour operators are saying it is easier to travel to France than our sister islands? And with the news that the government may not pursue the extension of the French visitors' ID scheme beyond September, which will mean no reciprocal arrangement for Jersey residents, so this route will also become harder for tour operators, will the Chief Minister explain what he is doing to support the Jersey tourist industry, specifically small businesses operating tours, now they potentially will lose further business due to the actions of this government?
Well, so I'm not sure if I agree that it is easier to travel to France than Guernsey, but we will keep a close watch on that. So inter-island travel is essential to the Channel Island economy, and I know that's something the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development is alive to, sir. The Home Affairs Minister, I think, is aware, as I'm aware of concerns over all the importance of allowing ease of transport between France and Jersey. We've had limited success with the identity card scheme, sir. We would like to extend that, but due to reasons outside of our control, that might be difficult. But I will assure members that we will do everything we can in the interest of Jersey, sir, in the interest of supporting our hospitality sector. So we're watching that particular issue very, very closely. And as I said, sir, to reiterate, we do what we can to help if we can, sir. But this is a matter that has become particularly relevant post-Brexit, sir, and is causing great difficulties.
Deputy Tallier.
Thank you, sir. Following this Assembly's debate and decision in February on a ceasefire in Gaza, I understand that the government has sent a letter to the UK Minister for Justice on the 13th of March, confirming and notifying him of that decision. Will the Chief Minister agree to publish that letter?
Well, sir, I did discuss this recently with the External Relations Minister, and he said he would be pleased to publish the letter if requested by a States member, sir. And as I think qualify as a States member, can I request that he publish the letter? Thank you.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tallier.
Thanks, sir. It's good to have friends in high places, sir. So could I ask why he thinks that the Minister gave a statement earlier on in the week saying that there were currently no plans to publish the letter, and it wasn't normal for the publishing of government-to-government letters, when clearly this is something of public interest, and that it means that we have to go slightly around the houses to get, I think, something that should automatically be in the public domain.
Well, of course, the External Relations Minister was quite right. It's not the normal protocol to publish letters between government. I remember that, sir, because I wanted to see the letter that was sent to the Faroe Islands. But I understood and bowed to protocol, and the External Relations Minister was rightly aligned to that. But given the importance of this matter and the importance of it to many islanders, I believe he has sought the views of the UK government, and I believe they're comfortable with that position, and on the back of that, sir, the Minister will act accordingly.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister confirm that him and his government are fully behind the Education Minister for building primary school in St Helens?
But I sort of aligned to the comments of the Education Minister earlier. What we are alive to as a government and Assembly is that we have two challenges. There is a drastic shortage of green space and park space in St Helier, and we desperately and urgently need a new school to replace older schools, possibly more than that. And the Education Minister is quite right. We need to take that to the Council of Ministers. I understand that is being planned so that Council of Ministers can put this to rest, make a decision and move forward appropriately. But I do reiterate, sir, both matters are urgent. There's a political juxtaposition, but I'm sure we can find a good solution, sir, and one that the Assembly will support.
Supplemental question, Deputy Gardner.
Absolutely. On the 7th of February, the Chief Minister confirmed that he didn't put anything on hold and he would like to have a reassurance. Are 3 months it's not enough for the Council of Ministers to make the decision that the gas place at school should be progressed and start to be built?
So the Deputy, with the greatest respect, is reacting to newspaper headlines and has got on the front foot with it. We don't work that way. We work in a collegiate way. We work in a planned way. And I didn't put anything on hold because there were no plans in place. There were ideas supported by the Education Minister and the previous, I'm not going to give way, so the previous government, but a new government is now in place. We haven't put anything on hold. We haven't slowed anything up, but it's clear because there are opposing views between the Constable of St Helier and the Education Minister. We need to resolve this pretty quickly so we know in which direction we are heading. But I reiterate, sir, we accept and understand the urgency for a new school. The Education Minister and I visited a number of schools to see firsthand the challenges they're having, sir, but also recognise that we need more green space in St Helier.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Just following on from that, in an interview with the JP, the Assistant Infrastructure Minister spoke about his plans for a new indoor skate park for town. Is the Chief Minister aware that there are also 4 vacant family homes with walled gardens that could be brought back into use on this site if the alternative vision for the Assistant Minister is proposing were pursued by the Council of Ministers? Would he not agree with me that bringing vacant homes back into use is an excellent way to make the best use of our built environment?
I wasn't aware there were vacant homes there, so in some instances it can be the best use of housing, sir, but not in all instances, sir. And I think in the instance we're referring to there, a greater and more detailed debate is required to make sure we do the right thing.
Supplemental question, Deputy Ward. Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. Following the Minister's responses, could he confirm, please, that the planning application was being drawn up for the Gas Place School and due to be presented in July, I believe, so he could confirm that. And also in last year's government plan, could he also confirm to the Assembly that there was an allocation for additional parks to be created once the school was built on the Springfield school site and also adjacent to the Labar Centre?
Yes, sir, I understand there are opportunities for increasing green space at Springfield School and the Labar Centre. I understand that perhaps would produce more green space than extending the park. I was aware that there was. I didn't know how much progress had been made with putting plans together, proper plan for a planning application. But of course, we can't make a planning application, really. We don't own the land yet. The land is owned by Andium, so that's where we are with it.
Perhaps the Minister might agree that in future he would take a little more care rather than simply inaccurately claiming that things had not been done by the previous government.
No, sir, I do take care before I make comments on the previous government, but I undertake to continue to take care. I treat members and this Assembly with respect, sir, and that will always be the case.
So
sometimes
that's That's your time, I'm afraid.
Oh. Went very quickly today, so thank you.
Well, there is no longer to be a statement made by the Minister for Health and Social Services, and therefore we would move normally on to public business. Is the adjournment proposed? Yes, sir. Very well. Then the Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.